This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Hustler Ream with you. Connor Hrabchak jumping on a little bit later on today. We have so much to get to. A great weekend down at Canada Life Center with back-to-back games. The Jets come out of the weekend with 3 of 4 points, including a big 3-0 shutout win over the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday night. So we've got lots to break apart coming out of the weekend for the Winnipeg Jets, including Scott Arniel bringing out the blender for Saturday and a couple significant changes to the second and third line that we will discuss. And, of course, Vlad Demetsnikov unable to go on Saturday, which meant Dominic Toninato, Moose captain, got into the lineup for the first time this season. But Connor Hellebuyck continues to do what he's done all year long, and that is be, in my opinion, the best damn player in the National Hockey League, regardless of position this season. A 6th shutout. I heard Elliot Friedman, who's actually in Winnipeg today, opening on 32 Thoughts, talking about the fact that Hellebuyck has 6 shutouts and 6 losses this season, now putting together another absolutely phenomenal season. And the Jets continue to enjoy life at the top of the Central Division. Little update on that with the Jets now at 61 points in a 3-way tie at the top of the league standings, along with the Washington Capitals and the Vegas Golden Knights. Both of those teams do have one game in hand on the Jets, so the Jets technically third in points percentage right now. But the Central Division looking pretty good. A 3-point lead on the Minnesota Wild, a 6-point lead on the Dallas Stars. Stars have 2 games in hand. And after the head-to-head win in regulation against the Colorado Avalanche, an 8-point cushion on Colorado right now in the Central Division through 44 games of the season. And, of course, the Jets don't see a plane for a while because they continue this 8-game homestand this week. Tomorrow, the Vancouver Canucks, with all the drama that comes with Vancouver coming into town. And then on Thursday, our next WST night against the Seattle Kraken Thursday night. And by the way, I was just checking. We had sold out the initial allotment of tickets. We got, I think, another dozen. There are 6 tickets remaining with the group for the game on Thursday night. So if you'd like to join us, if maybe you've been thinking about it and haven't got to one of the games yet, winnipegjets.com/WST. Jump on those final 6 tickets. Join us. Special guest star in the section as well on Thursday. Connor is going to take a night off from the press box and throw the jersey on with the crew and get out there. So anyways, I'm looking forward to Thursday night. But first, we got Vancouver coming in. But yeah, winnipegjets.com/WST. We'll mention that a little later on in the show. And then the Calgary Flames in on Saturday night at Canada Life Center. We're going to have a lot of Jet talk today. We'll hear from some reaction from the club coming out of the weekend, head coach and more. Mike McIntyre was at practice today. He will join us at 1:30. And then Kevin Sawyer is going to jump back on. We had a great time with Kevin on last month. So we'll get Kevin's thoughts on the games this weekend. And now, of course, look ahead to some more home cooking for the Winnipeg Jets, who can hopefully be serving up some more wins for the home crowd at Canada Life Center. And as I mentioned, Connor's going to jump on with us. We'll really focus in on the Jets for the first hour and a half of the program. And then we will transition to Wild Card Weekend in the National Football League and the Vikings and Rams tonight in the final game of the 6-game wildcard weekend, formerly known as Super Wildcard Weekend. For some reason, they've dropped the Super, but I am looking forward to what should be a great game tonight, which, of course, has been moved to State Farm Stadium in Phoenix due to the horrible nature of the fire outbreak in Southern California. So buckle up, should be a good one. Great to have you all with us. If you're with us live on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give a thumbs up to today's episode. Shout out to all the podcast listeners, and a huge thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our partners at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Rollies Transfer, Manitoba Battery, fansfirst.ca, Wallace & Wallace, Canadian Club, the Winnipeg Jets, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, and Boston Pizza. And we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, what's going on? How was your weekend?
Hey, it was cold. A lot of inside time, -20. Too cold for me. As you want to do the outdoor activities, tobogganing, snowshoeing, outdoor hockey. But, -20, too much. So a lot of, football, 2 Jets games. It was nice. Here, we do have some breaking Bombers news, Huss. The winter meetings are taking place, and the Bombers just, over the weekend, they announced Willie Jefferson's back. But just as we went live, they announced they signed Dylan Mitchell to a 1-year contract. Ed Tate notes, veteran receiver Dylan Mitchell, 727 yards and 4 touchdowns on 58 catches last year in Edmonton. He also returned kicks. Nice addition with Dalton Schoen, Kenny Lawler, and Lucky Whitehead. They're pending free agents, and Pokey Wilson signed with the New York Jets of the NFL last week. So CFL offseason underway, but a lot of people here before we even went live, pumped with the Jets weekend. Friday, amazing ceremony for Connor Hellebuyck, his major milestones, and maybe game of the year, Jets, Avs, Saturday. So great weekend, and the homestand does continue, and I'm looking forward to Thursday being out there with so many WST listeners in Section 316.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you can all join us. Just quickly on the Bombers, as you mentioned, was going to get to that. Willie's back. Mm-hmm. I don't think there was any doubt that he was going to be back as a Winnipeg Blue Bomber. We all remember the nature of his tweets after he had his Monster Grey Cup game, probably acting as his own agent and pulling a bit of an Alan Walsh, letting everyone know how good he was and that yesterday's price was not today's price. They figured out a way to get it done. But to me, I was a little surprised when I heard the news about Dylan Mitchell signing with the Bombers at this point. But in some ways, I think jumping on that and getting a player like that in the fold, Remo, right off the bat, just speaks to the need there with uncertainty of some other players, whether they'll be back and re-signed, and the fact that Pokey Wilson was let go to go down to the National Football League. So Dylan Mitchell's been a good player in this league for a while. He can certainly help the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But the big news coming out of the weekend, of course, Big Willie coming down to Winnipeg for another year with the big Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But yeah, as far as the weekend goes, we'll start off on Friday. The ceremony was awesome. And holy smokes, were those sticks nice that he got. I think the nature of a goalie stick, Remis, as opposed to the player stick, gives you a lot more surface room. And the way they had the 500 in the silver on that stick that he got was really, really cool. A bunch of people popping in on the video, including Dustin Byfuglien. And Remo, I don't know if you were in the building or not, the pop that Buff got when he came onto the screen was certainly one of the highlights of the night. There's that stick, if you're watching with this on YouTube. Absolutely beautiful gift to Connor Hellebuyck. And listen, he was all smiles. Chuck was there. His beautiful family there. His kids seemed to be having a great time. They got the little sticks too, and it was great. Now, Eric Comrie went into the net for the Winnipeg Jets that night, and I will say it's a good thing we kind of got back to the rink on Saturday night and had that game because against the Avs, because the game, to be frank, on Friday was a little dull, a little dreary, at least for 2 periods. And listen, I give a lot of credit to the Los Angeles Kings. Reem, you'll remember the matchup between the Jets and Kings earlier this season, where the Jets were held to a season low 14 shots against, or 14 shots on goal, I should say. It was more of that for the first couple periods. Now, the Jets, and in particular, Scheifele, Connor, and Vilardi, stepped up big time in the third period. They had a lot more zone time. They had a lot more offense that was created. And ended up scoring an absolutely gorgeous goal that'll be probably on some season highlight reels. Unfortunately, weren't able to get it done in overtime. And I'm sure looking back at it, Scheifele and Connor would have preferred that, and I know the coaches, I'm sure, would have preferred that they would have found a way to get off the ice a little earlier. That didn't happen. They were on for the entire overtime. And after getting a couple nice chances of their own, ended up in the back of the net. But for the Jets to be playing on back-to-back, to come back and perform the way they did against the Avalanche on Saturday, getting the 2 points, I think most Jet fans walking out of two very difficult opponents with 3 of 4 points, pretty good weekend overall for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, they won the game that you'd like them to win Saturday against the divisional opponent, Colorado. And Eric Comrie, I said coming in, I know that we talked about the goal scoring when he's in the net hadn't been there, but he kept putting up threes, number of 3-goal against performances. Well, I thought he was very solid. I mean, both teams stifling defensively. On Friday, the Jets did their part, allowing only 1 goal, but unfortunately they were only able to score 1, and it was a beautiful goal. I mean, Gabriel Vilardi's pass to Mark Scheifele on the power play, finding that wide open net. Incredible. And Mark Scheifele, very quietly, after this weekend, second in the league in goal scoring. Pretty incredible. Tied for second with Mikko Rantanen, and Leon Draisaitl's got the lead at 31, Scheifele at 25. But Saturday, they just kept it rolling. You're wondering, how are they going to be on the back-to-back? And they kept that defensive performance up there. Amazing how, what Colorado did to them last year in the playoffs, how they haven't put one past Hellebuyck at home this season. Dylan Samberg, if there are any questions about easing him in, Hustler, no, that absolutely did not happen. Back there blocking shots and playing huge minutes, 22, 35 on Friday, and he was way up there as well. Him and Neil Pionk really solidifying that second pair. And on Saturday, it was, when you talk about second pair D, also second line forward. Do we have a new second line? We talked all season. Has Adam Lowry actually the team's second line center with the Niederreiter Appleton line? Well, he is now the second line center, but a different line with Alex Iafallo and Nikolai Ehlers. They rolled that forward today. So I'm interested to see how that is going to play out this week. But very positive weekend for the Jets, getting 3 of 4 points. Now 6 of 10 on the road trip. Maybe a bit of a rocky start, but real chance to make some points here with Seattle struggling. They're here Thursday. Vancouver, a lot of off-ice drama tomorrow. And Calgary, they're on the fringe of a playoff spot Saturday. So good chance to continue to go. But, I mean, awesome weekend for the Jets. You said the ceremony, you could hear the pop that Byfuglien got. Great. It was incredible. And, these ceremonies that they do, you had to get emotional. I mean, they have the videos, of Hellebuyck, like his first game. I remember, I think it was a Black Friday in Minnesota, his first game, and, milestone wins and the performances. Very, very, very well done. The Heli logo, with the fish, loved that. It was a bit of a tearjerker, that ceremony, but hey, still got he just signed a massive deal. Like, career's not over yet. It's just hit some big milestones.
This season in particular, I think Jet fans find themselves pinching themselves every now and then that, that this guy, has turned into the player that he is. And then you're reminded that he re-upped and will likely be here for the remainder of his career. And, even when the team doesn't play as well as they did, because they played very, very well, especially defensively on Saturday, every single time 37's in net, you got a chance to win. You've got a good chance to win. And more people around the league, I think, taking notice of this incredible season that Hellebuyck is putting a year after winning the Vezina Trophy. the one guy just to the line changes, a guy that was really loving what Scott O'Neill did was Nikolai Ehlers. And Ehlers went out, took control right off the bat, scoring in the second minute of the game. And from then on, the Jets really controlled that game. Like, Hellebuck's had some huge games and some big shutouts. And I think back to the game earlier this season, the 1-0 win, that might have been Hellebuck's most brilliant game of the season. Saw a ton of rubber, a ton of chances, and stopped them all. This, to me, was more of a team shutout. But we're just looking. The high danger chances at 5-on-5 were 14-3 in the Winnipeg Jets' favor. There weren't really too many moments where Hellebuyck had to be his brilliant self. He was just steady. He was just there. And for a full 60 minutes, the Jets did a hell of a job of playing with the lead and doing the best to minimize, the brilliance of Nate McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen and the high-powered players, including Cale Makar on the Avalanche.
Yeah, absolutely, Huss. You talk about defensive structure. It was certainly there, Friday, Saturday as well. I mean, you finish a weekend giving up one goal in regulation against two top teams. Pretty incredible stuff. And Connor Hellebuyck, I think more and more people are taking notice. Sean Reynolds, Rennie of the Kenny and Rennie show, letting everyone know before on the national broadcast before the game, Hart Trophy candidacy for Connor Hellebuyck, leading the league, goals against average, 2.02, leading the league, save percentage, 928, and shutouts, 6. And 6, career high for him, Hustler. So I imagine he'll be setting another career high later this season. And yeah, I think we're starting more and more to talk about Connor Hellebuyck's like this historic season, historic run, favorite to go back-to-back on the Vezina. And yeah, with the trade deadline coming up and you have a goalie playing the way Hellebuyck is, we're going to be having more and more conversations about the Jets needing to add a significant piece to make a deep playoff run. Although, I mean, you look at the way that the team is, pulling up the league standings, and there they are, one point tied with the Golden Knights. They played one more game, 61 points. Yeah. But starting to look at playoff matchups would be the Jets and Avalanche if the playoffs were settled today.
Hey, the goal for the Jets has to be to win the Central, and ideally, I think the best case scenario would be win the Central and have Colorado, Dallas be 2-3. I mean, the Jets have had their way with Minnesota. And I think whoever comes in that 8th spot, because if you can win the division and win the West, I mean, you might be getting, I think Vancouver's in that spot right now at 48 points.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's a long ways away and, still a lot of hockey left to be played. But overall, a great weekend. And let's hear it from Scott O'Neill because it was certainly very clear to everybody in the building that the Jets came to play very focused, knowing the importance of that game against Colorado, and maybe had a little bit of extra confidence knowing that it was Hellebuyck in net. They did not look like a team that had just played the night before, even though Colorado was the team that was resting. They had played back-to-back the previous night and were finishing 3-4. But Scott O'Neill was asked if that was the best defensive performance he's seen from his team after the game.
Last night was a playoff game, and I thought we didn't score, but we really checked well. We did a great job of kind of battling. Tonight, I thought we put it all together. It was really a real solid game, or against a different opponent compared, where we knew that LA wasn't going to give us much room to work. These guys, there's a transition and speed game that they have, and I thought we did a fantastic job of kind of limiting that.
Yeah, no disagreement there with the coach. It was just a masterful performance defensively, and obviously they capitalized on a few of their chances and were very much deserving of the win. They just did a great job on keeping the Avalanche to the outside when they did have the puck. Here's the Jets head coach on kind of pushing the Avs to the perimeter.
Yeah, I mean, we've always talked about and preached about the guts of the ice. The puck's going to try to get the opposition's going to try to get it there, and so being one step ahead and both our good sticks and also I like the way we eliminated people. I don't mean like crushing hits. So we got in front of people, kind of not allowed them to get to the spots that they wanted to get to, and just kind of, the stuff that did happen, a lot of it came from the outside.
All right, so there's the coach on the defensive performance now. As something that we'll be talking about with Mike and Kevin Sawyer when he joins us is the newly formed second line, which was Nikolai Ehlers with Adam Lowry and Alex Iafallo, and that line played big minutes against the big boys on the Avalanche. Here's what Arnie had to say about the newly formed line two.
Obviously, there's a really good line on the other side there that certainly creates an awful lot of offense for them. But I knew it was going to take more than just one line, and however the matchups kind of worked out. But just the fact of having moving Coop up and just having fly speed on there, he was going to go head to head against Rantanen. So it's kind of with Al being on the other side, it just gave us kind of still a fast little bit of speed to it. But they, like you mentioned, Lau's great at talking to Fly and kind of keeping him on board on how to make sure that he's doing the job. I thought he did a really good job. He did a great job. Obviously scored 2 goals, but he did a great job without the puck, and that's what that line did. We didn't let them get into that sort of attack game, that fast game that they like to play.
Yeah, certainly the early returns on that line change bore some major fruit. The opening goal, which ended up being the winner, an empty netter later on. Nikolai Ehlers, one of the stars of the game. Arnie kind of expanded a little bit more on the benefits of having Nikolai Ehlers play with Adam Lowry.
One, he's on the ice a little bit more in key situations, D-zone draws, where maybe I would throw Lau's line out there, or it might be a situation where he's starting in our end of the rink, where not a lot of times he's doing that. The other side is the responsibility that he knew he was going against the McKinnon line, and he took a lot of pride in that and making sure that he did his part to keep those guys off the score sheet. So, I like to. It's intriguing now. It's got me thinking. So, I liked a lot of what I saw.
All right, and we can't finish up with the coach without hearing his thoughts on another shutout from Connor Hellebuyck and the weekend from Dylan Sandberg returning from 6 weeks off with a broken foot.
He had an easy night.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah, we only gave up five on 5 chances, so easy night. No, there's no. I mean, never ever discredit a guy that gets a shutout. He had to make stops. He knew that the sort of volume was. They were trying to get their volume, and that's another thing we did a really good job tonight was getting in shot lanes. We did a really good job of making sure that not all those pucks got to the net front, but. When stuff happens, he's there. Their second power play, they seemed to throw a lot more pucks at our net, kind of attacked it a little bit more, and he had to be, certainly had to be big.
Quick one on Dylan Sandberg's minutes, and how good was he tonight?
Yeah, we didn't really want him to play that much, but again, I wasn't sure how after last night being 22 minutes how it was going to go. But man, he just built on last night's game, and it those. They saw an awful lot of McKinnon, and all 4 of those D I thought did a great job against that big line when we had to switch off different guys at times. But no, to have Sammy back, that's a big plus for us.
All right, so there's Coach Scott Arniel post-game Saturday. A guy that was in very good spirits was one of the stars of the game, Nikolai Ehlers. Here's Ehlers on the big win over Colorado.
You win 3-0 at home against a really good team. I'd say we played pretty well overall. Against a team like that, they're going to get a few chances, but I think we kept that number very low today, so we're happy with that.
Is it too soon for you guys to think, okay, this is a team we could play in the playoffs, so we need to either send a message or set a tone? Or is it way too soon to be going down that road?
I don't know. You look at last year, we sent a message with 2 games to go or what it was and ended up being out after 5 games. So I don't think that really matters. The games that you end up playing in the playoffs are the ones that matter, not the ones 3 months before.
All right, so there's Nikolai is on the win and playing up against Colorado. Now here is him specifically talking about the new look on the line and why he feels that Ehlers, along with Adam Lowry, was a good fit.
He wins a lot of battles, and I think he wants to use my speed as much as possible. He creates a lot of room for me to use that speed, and again, Al today won a lot of battles as well. So I think we played as good as game I can remember today, and that's something that we want to build off of.
When you say wants you to use your speed, what does that look like in the game? What do you mean specifically in some situations?
Well, like I said, he wins a battle and I get open and he throws it into either an area or right on my tape, and I'm in open space to be able to use that speed. And then he gets into areas where he thinks I can get it to him or Al. I just think our overall game today was really good. And that's something that we want to continue doing.
It was really interesting to hear from Ehlers after the game, Remo, and that, he was, I think, obviously very pleased with the way the team played. And I think felt a much bigger part of the win playing with Adam Lowry. I mean, scoring the early goal, obviously, but it was also the challenge of what he was involved in, and that's going up against the Nathan MacKinnon line. And that's not a familiar place for Nikolai Ehlers, and he really leaned into it. Here's Ehlers on just the challenge of going up against one of the best in the world in Nathan MacKinnon, and the challenge that he and his line had on Saturday night.
I mean, yeah, of course, but they're really good players too, right? Like when they buzz, they buzz. But like I said, I think you could see that I enjoyed that challenge, and I tried to do my best to not give up anything, and we worked as a line to not give them anything. So I loved it.
He loved it, and Reem, you could tell that was it was a big move by Arniel, moving Ehlers. And listen, I'll be honest. I mean, I have never really thought that was a combination that was, I don't want to say made sense. I mean, at certain points you could put a player like Ehlers with a player like Lowry, but the buy-in from Ehlers and the way things turned out on Saturday, I think, as Scott Arniel said, it certainly gives the head coach, something really to ponder moving forward when, a guy like Nemetsnikov is back and healthy.
Yeah, nice little dynamic there with the small, speedy player and the big and the bigger center. Has a bit of thunder and lightning. And he mentions later, Lowry wins the battles in the corners and he gets to a spot and Lowry throws the puck to him. And it's just a nice play on that goal. Dylan Sandberg finding Ehlers, in the middle of the ice, uses his speed to skate in and just rip a shot past Blackwood. I do wonder, we have talked a lot about Adam Lowry's increased offensive output this year, on pace for a career. He's got 10 goals here through 44 games. Could he get to 20? I mean, his career high is 15, and I wonder if that is part of the reason as well why, hey, you can put this guy in at second line center, even if he had been playing, on the quote third line, but getting second line minutes before. I think matching them together, interesting idea. Well, they practiced together again today. Mike was there. He's coming up here with Connor Schafely, Velarde, Ehlers, Lowry, Iafallo, Niederreiter, Kupari, Perfetti, Barron, Gustafsson, Toninato, D pairs Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Stanley, Heinola, and then Fleury and Coghlan. But for Ehlers, as Arniel said, hey, if he's excelling in the role, limiting chances, it also gives him a bit more ice time as well, put him in some key situations.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a bonus. So let's keep it going. Nemetsnikov, he didn't skate today either, so it seems like he's going to be out for another game. But why not keep this one going and see if they can make some more magic tomorrow night against Vancouver?
Yeah, and here's a couple of interesting thoughts. First of all, Dom Zappia. Iafallo has become the new Matthew Perreault. He's been solid. Completely agree. Alex Iafallo, I think, was one of the more underappreciated Jets. And maybe it was that the fourth line, although the fourth line was playing double-digit minutes regularly. And Iafallo, he has the best stick of a Jet I think we've seen in a long time. Like the way he's able to pull pucks out of the air. He's great on the wall winning battles, and Ehlers kind of mentioned that as well. And maybe that is something we'll see tomorrow. I thought Rasmus Kupari played well as in addition with Cole Perfetti and Nino Niederreiter on that new look third line. Anyways, we're going to get to Mike McIntyre right away. Just before we do that, a huge thanks to our friends over at Rolly's Transfer, their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And shout out to Dan Jets fan who saw the new Rolly's truck with the big WST logo out on the streets of Winnipeg this weekend. Very cool to see that. Great to have partners like Rolly's working with us again in 2025. And folks, if you have a move planned, maybe that WST truck can be pulling in front of your home and taking you to your next destination. Rolly's, family owned and operated for over 60 years. The most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, and they're ready to give you the white glove treatment. There it is right there. The white glove treatment on your next move. So what you're going to want to do is head on over to Rollies.com, click on the request an estimate feature up in the top right corner, put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to go, and the friendly Rollies staff will get back to you right away with a quote for your move and then get you onto your next destination. Moving in 2025, do it with our partners at Rollies. Find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. I can confirm it is brutally cold outside, and that's a good thing for the ice on the river. Might not be a good thing for your car, your truck battery. But Manitoba Battery's ready to go, and they got you covered with the best prices in town on car and truck batteries, period, beating the pants off the big box stores. And if your car's not moving right now, well, guess what? They'll take care of that. They'll deliver it to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. If you're wondering how your battery's making out right now, pop by Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive locations for a free battery test. And then, of course, the best selection and the best prices in town waiting for you. Shop local, save money, and save time. Manitoba Battery there for you. Shop online as well right now at manitobabattery.com. And hey, into the new year right now, guys, if you're planning on stepping up your menswear game in 2025, go down and see the fellas at F Apparel at 190 Smith Street. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. You can check them out online and make an appointment to come in for a fitting at that's EPHapparel.com, or pop down and see them in person at 190 Smith Street at F Apparel. All right, on the road today, joining us from the bowels of Canada Life Center, it is Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, what's going on?
So, Huss, I truly am in the bowels of Canada Life Center. Let me just show you. I'm outside the Matt Frost Media Center. So I am. These are the stands behind the Jets' goal. The Canucks are practicing right now, and no word of a lie. While you were just reading that last ad, I saw a mouse or a rat run by under the grandstands here. Now, I noticed the other day that there's traps. How do we get back to me here? There we go. There's like some mouse traps down here. And I thought, that's probably useless. Like, why would they need that here? Out of the corner of my eye, it wasn't Brad Marchand. So we're not talking like it was a little one. It was probably a mouse. But I guess, you got food and popcorn and whatever, and it's cold out. So I can confirm that there is a rodent on the loose down here. And let me also say, I don't like mice or rats. So if you hear a squeal from me while we're doing this chat, you know that it's probably made another appearance.
I hope that will not be the case, and you can maintain composure during your weekly visit to the program. What a weekend at Canada Life Center. I mean, it could have been better. It could have won that game in overtime, but I mean, to come back with the performance against the Colorado Avalanche, who were here in Winnipeg resting the night before, Jets playing the night before. Overall, I'm sure that game might have pleased head coach Scott Arniel as much as any this season.
Yeah, and for the reasons you just explained, the Jets. Now, granted, they had only played 1 in 5 before the Kings game, so the fuel tank wasn't completely on empty. And let's face it, the Kings stymied the Jets pretty effectively. Certainly at 5-on-5, Winnipeg didn't generate a whole lot. That doesn't mean it was an easy game and that the Jets didn't exert themselves. So to come back. The power play, and how many times have we said this year, Huss? Like, the power play gets them a point against the Kings because they had nothing going 5-on-5, and they score that big power play goal, and they get it to overtime, and then it's a coin flip, and Kyle Connor had a great chance to win it. Jets get caught out on the ice too long, Scheifele Connor, and it's in the back of the net. But turning the page to the next night, you can tell, Huss, the Jets were treating this. Not that they ever treat the tail end of a back-to-back as a scheduled loss. That's the terminology, right? That some in hockey circles, they'll refer to it as a scheduled loss when you're playing for the second straight night. And to be fair, it had been a scheduled loss for the Jets so far this season because they were 0-4 on the back end of a back-to-back. But they did something a little different here. They saved their number one goaltender, the Mr. 300 wins for the back-to-back. And I think a big part of that was because there was no travel, could sleep in their own beds on Friday night. But I think it just spoke to the approach that the Jets took with this game against Colorado, who had been, sizzling hot. Suddenly they're nipping at their heels. And so this was a huge game. And for the Jets to, not just treat it as such in terms of their words, but to come out in the way they played, to not unlike what the Kings were able to do to them the night before, the Jets were really able to neutralize a pretty potent Colorado team that I think at the end of the night, Huss, if I recall from looking at Natural Stat Trick, the Avs had 3 high dangers the entire game, and they were all in the first period. The Jets didn't give up a single high danger chance in the last 40 minutes of that game. That was as solid a defensive commitment as I've seen. I lost track of how many times, for example, it looked like something might be forming in the slot for the Avalanche, and the Jets would get a stick in the lane and deflect it into the netting or, into the corner, whatever. Like, the Jets, they were on point. And that's not to take away from what Connor Hellebuyck did. He was good. He was great. But he didn't have to be sensational. He didn't steal that game. The Jets just were smothering. And it's a game like that, Huss, that it causes you to think what could be with this team. Like, if that can become their blueprint and they can do that more times than not, the sky would seem to be the limit for these Jets.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it felt the 2 games that they've played against Colorado this year at home have both felt very playoff-like. Now, the first one, they were both shutouts by Connor Hellebuyck, but frankly, they could not have been more different games. I mean, the last 40 minutes of the previous game, Colorado was all over Winnipeg. They were relentless, and Hellebuyck was just simply brilliant. And I think if we wanted to look at any game this year that Hellebuyck has sort of stolen, that was it.
Right.
This was the exact opposite. This would have been as comfortable and chill a shutout as Hellebuyck will get all season long. And certainly the coach loved that, and the players loved being a part of it. It was a big weekend for Hellebuyck with his ceremony and presentation on Friday night, and then following it up with a shutout against the Colorado Avalanche of all teams. Can certainly do it. Now, listen, I want to get to the second line, but, let's just get this topic out of the way right off the bat. We won't need to spend too much time on it. Michael Stetsky in chat. Hey, WST, can you people explain why Logan Stanley was allowed to play back-to-back while Hanel is sitting? On answer from our Neil, I really want real 6D playing. Listen, I'll tell you straight up. He's above him on the depth chart. They fielded in the role that he plays. He is adding some toughness, some size that they obviously want. And to be honest, like I don't want this to come across like Villy has been, I guess, fine. But, you know, in the time that he's played, he hasn't really jumping up and stolen the job right now. So right now, while Hayden Fleury's injured, although, Mike, you can maybe expand on that because it sounds like he was back in a regular jersey today. Right now, they preferred to have Logan Stanley in there. And, I mean, I still maintain I don't think either of those guys are probably starting in the top 6 once we get to the playoffs. But it's pretty simple. And, frankly, seeing the way the team played defensively on the weekend, which is why he is in the lineup, there was a couple nervous moments, but I mean that's where we're at right now with this club, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone based on what we've seen over the last month.
No, I mean, look, as a fan, and I'm speaking to just fans out there, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. It is what it is. Scott Arniel's made that abundantly clear in terms of how he's utilized this lineup. They believe. And again, you can disagree with this belief, but they believe, and they're the ones making the decisions, they believe Logan Stanley brings something to the roster that right now, with what they have at their disposal, with the injuries that they have on the blue line, and, you know, before any ads are made that might happen at the trade deadline, they believe Logan Stanley is in their top 6. And again, you can scream about it till you're blue in the face, and some people I know on social media to the point it's become an exhausting debate. But at the end of the day, it's the coach who makes the call. And I'll tell you this, Scott Arniel isn't trying to find ways to lose hockey games. Now, again, there'll be people that say, well, he's got a funny way of showing it or the way he's utilized. But they're privy to conversations, and maybe there's data that we don't have. I can't tell you exactly the permutations of why they're coming to these decisions, but it's obvious they believe, because they're not trying to lose hockey games, that he's their best option right now. Now, for the free Villy folks out there, looks like he might get freed again tomorrow night because worth noting that at practice today, Villy was with Logan Stanley, not Dylan Coghlan. Coghlan was skating with Hayden Fleury, who shed the non-contact for the first time, and Scott Arniel told me Fleury could be an option maybe by Thursday or at least Saturday. He won't be an option tomorrow. So the fact that it was Stanley and Heinola together tells me that Villy likely comes back in tomorrow. And you know what? I liked Villy's last game. I guess it was against Nashville earlier in the homestand. Scott Arniel, you know, he said he wanted lefty-righty, and he liked what Dylan Coghlan was doing. And again, clearly Logan Stanley is ahead of the depth chart of Ville Heinola. I agree with you, Huss, and I'll repeat what I've said before. I think if Logan Stanley is in your playoff lineup, then one of two things has happened. Either you've been hit with a bunch of injuries on the back end, and that's not good, or you've been very quiet at the trade deadline and in terms of ads on the blue line. I don't think that's good either. So, you know, nobody can predict the future. I've said before, I'll say it again, I'd be surprised if Logan Stanley is playing playoff games for this team. But as we sit here on January, whatever we are here, 13th, and with, you know, Hayden Fleury and Colin Miller not an option right now, they view him in their top 6. And that's their right to do so. They're the coaches. They got to live and die with the decisions. And like you said, the most recent evidence, I mean, the Jets didn't lose Friday because they were defensively porous. They couldn't generate any offense. And then they lost, you know, in the 3-on-3 in overtime. But defensively, the last 2 games against 2 really good Western Conference teams, the Jets were really, really good defensively.
Yeah, you know, so as I said, it's a topic that will inevitably continue to be brought up. But I mean, I would also point that, you know, for people giving it to the coaching staff, the best measure of a team is the standings. And the standings at 29, 12, and 3 right now show that this coaching staff's getting a lot out of the group right now. And people will always have some different opinions, but right now, and listen, listen, I've been critical of Stan on a number of occasions. I mean, and even, as recently as last week when he had an ugly game, he was good this weekend. The entire team was good.
Yeah.
There's a couple nervous moments. That's, I don't think ever going to change. But overall, a strong performance by the entire team. Let's move, though, to...
This has been happening quite a bit lately. We lost Hustler, Mike.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what he's going to want to move to. We got to figure this out, though. It keeps happening. We were talking about the lines, Mike. I don't know if he's going to move on to the second line with Ehlers, Lowry, Iafallo, but Scott Arniel seemed very intrigued after the game on Saturday, and it looks like they went ahead with it today. Any other insights that you can provide on the new look second line with Adam Lowry, centering Ehlers, and Iafallo?
Yeah, if it ain't broke, I guess, is kind of the approach here. Now, to be clear, Vlad Domestikov is not an option right now, and he won't be an option tomorrow night. Scott Arniel's already ruled him out for tomorrow's game. We'll see what the rest of this homestand brings. The fact that he apparently tried to skate this morning and couldn't after blocking a shot the other day, that's obviously not a great sign for Vlad Domestikov. Obviously, they're hoping it's not going to be anything long-term. But for now, Adam Lowry is your second-line center. And, in some ways, Remo, he kind of has been the second-line center, Adam Lowry, in terms of how they used that line when it was Lowry, Niederreiter, Appleton. Well, obviously, Appleton's out, and now Nemestikov's out. So Lowry moves up, and I absolutely loved how that line looked the other night with Iafallo, who'd been doing a great job filling in for Appleton. And now with Nikolai Ehlers, that added such an interesting element against the McKinnon line that I mean, the proof is in the pudding. That they shut that line down completely. And Nikolai Ehlers, he not just a small role, he was a big part of that. And he also scored 2 goals. Obviously, the second was an empty netter. But, I think it was a really interesting pairing to put Lowry and Ehlers together. It's one we've seen briefly in the past, and I think those guys really complement each other well, and they both spoke about it, Ehlers after the game and Lowry this morning. And so Scott Arniel, he's intrigued, and he should be, and he wants to see more of it, and so we're going to see it again tomorrow. And, no doubt they'll be used again as a shutdown line against Vancouver's big guns. And, who knows what this means, once they get everyone healthy and what it could possibly do to a Winnipeg lineup, Huss, that has been remarkably consistent, and especially when you're talking the forward lines, kind of all season. But now that some injuries have hit Appleton, Nemestikov, it's kind of forcing some different looks, and I think that's a good thing for the Jets. Why not? It's pretty clear that they weren't going to just experiment on their own. They were just going to keep rolling the same lineup as long as they were healthy. Well, now they've had no choice. And I think that bodes well for, down the road and maybe in the playoffs when something's not working. So you've got some other options in your pocket. And certainly the Lowry-Ehlers combo with Alex Iafallo, who I agree with what you were saying just before I came on, the new Matthew Perreault, the Swiss Army knife, that was a really good line. And they did some great things the other night.
Yeah, the dynamic of having Iafallo on that line too. Listen, Lowry and Iafallo were 2 of your most best defensive and responsible players. They're 2 of the toughest guys to play against. They probably, I don't know if there's metrics for, winning battles and whatnot, but those guys would be right at the top of the list, I would imagine. And I got to tell you, I think Nikolai Ehlers, who is known for his world-class speed and offensive flair and all that, I think it was very clear. We just listened to him talk after the game. He loved the challenge of playing with those players. And Mike, the number, we talked about those high-danger chances against. Nikolai Ehlers scoring 2 goals was great. what they were able to do to one of the best lines in hockey, to me, was the takeaway. And I can tell you, the goals was awesome. The way they were able to play defensively, having Ehlers add a totally different offensive component to that line has to be food for thought for Scott Arniel going forward. Because, I mean, even if you're still talking about adding a center, if all of a sudden your big matchup line has Nikolai Ehlers on it, you can get him out there. What might that allow you to do with the combination of Nino Niederreiter, Cole Perfetti, potentially another center?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure Rasmus Kupari has the offensive chops to play with those guys long term. But again, he was really good. He's just never going to be a big point producer. But man, like, you want to talk about accepting a challenge and leading into it. Ehlers was that, and he told everybody as much how excited he was. And I think it makes sense for a number of reasons. First of all, the way that other line was kind of struggling, but also to be given that responsibility of playing top matchups against the best players in the world. And I thought he was great last night, along with his or Saturday, along with both Lowry and Iafallo.
Well, put it this way: if Vlad Nemestikov, and he's not available to play tomorrow, but if he was, would you put him back with Ehlers and Perfetti right off of the hop? I wouldn't. I'd try him now in Lowry's spot. Put him with Niederreiter and Perfetti and see what that looks like.
I might just put him in Toninato's spot, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that. And again, you want balance throughout your lineup. You want, all four lines to be able to potentially be a threat at both ends of the ice, defensively for sure, and offensively. And yeah, I love the way Nikolai Ehlers responded to the challenge, both in terms of how he played, but then what he said after the game. And Huss, it was clear that there was excitement, that he was trusted with that kind of new role. And I think it was great that he got rewarded right away with a goal, right? Because he's a guy, he loves to obviously generate offense. But so it's important for offensive players to see that their hard work defensively doesn't necessarily have to come at the sacrifice of offense. That being said, there's no question he relished the idea of being able to neutralize the NHL's leading scorer, which is what Nathan MacKinnon is, when he came into that game. And, almost liken it a little bit, Huss, to getting Kyle Connor on the penalty kill this year. You look at Kyle Connor's defensive game and how much better that is, even at 5-on-5. And I think a big part of that is because the coaching staff has said, we trust you. And so I get the sense that there is now some of that with Nikolai Ehlers. He appreciated it. He wanted to show his coach that he was up for the assignment. And so far, he passed the first big test, and it was a whopper of a test with flying colors.
Hey, let me just throw this out. And again, this is kind of a secondary conversation, but when we're talking about Nikolai Ehlers moving forward, we have to do it within the context that he's on an expiring contract and could be a UFA and leave. And I haven't heard anything that has told me that at any point this year he's likely to resign. And I think maybe a big part of that has just been where he's fit into this team. I will just throw this out there, that if this becomes more than a short-term experiment and Ehlers is starting to play more significant minutes and seeing at a level of success with a guy like Adam Lowry, who's incredibly respected and the captain of this team, and you see him getting the challenge of going up more and more against the McKinnons of the world, I don't think that does anything but help the possibility of him maybe seeing his role with this team a little differently and potentially opening the door to staying. I mean, I'm sure there'll be plenty more that goes into that conversation, Mike, but I think there might be some supplementary benefits as well to the way things look right now, assuming that they're going to keep these guys together for a little while and see what they can do. And I'll tell you what, I think Lowry and Iafallo are going to love having a guy that's a difference maker like that on their line too, to kind of give them a little bit more pop as opposed to just be going out to try to neutralize other lines. Not that they've done that this year. I mean, we mentioned Adam Lowry's already in double-digit goals, but right. I think you know what I'm saying.
Well, for sure, because let's face it, the kind of work that Lowry and Iafallo, players like that do, like that's hard work. When you're in corners and battling and of course they're often battling against the other team's best. So they're out there against Makar or, tomorrow night, Quinn Hughes. So you're out there against the best D and the best, offensive players. So when you're winning puck battles, to have a guy on your line that is such a threat to then do something really productive, and not to take away from the Mason Appletons or, other guys that have been used in that role with the likes of Lowry. But they don't have, guys like that don't have the same finish that a guy like Nikolai Ehlers has. So, and certainly the speed, just to be able to disrupt what the other team is trying to do just with his speed alone. And that's why, to your point about someone like Rasmus Kupari, who obviously doesn't have anywhere near the offensive finishing of a Nikolai Ehlers, but his speed can be a real deterrent. And that's why he's been so effective in the lineup. When you now have the combination of speed and skill that Nikolai Ehlers does, and you put it with kind of the puck retrieval and the dogged determination of guys like Lowry and Iafallo and the physicality, I mean, those are the elements to a really, really good NHL line. And whether it's whatever you want to call them in terms of the pecking order, like, that's a great line. And yeah, I get the sense that, think of it, sometimes the greatest revelations have come as a result of something you didn't expect to happen, right? An injury that opens the door for either someone or something new to be tried. And in this case, Vlad Nemestikov blocking that shot has caused the Jets to have to look internally for some other mixes. And they may have found a really intriguing one here. And to your point, Huss, I don't imagine that this hurts the Ehlers case at all when it comes to, like, guys like Ehlers. They want to feel included. They want to feel like they're important. And when you're adding to the list of responsibilities, clearly we saw that Nikolai Ehlers relished that chance and he loved it. And that was a great thing to see for sure.
Mike, great stuff as always. Enjoy Canucks practice. I'm sure there'll be some interesting conversations going on around that team as they come into the peg for tomorrow's game. And we'll look forward to catching up with you in the rink and reading all the coverage in the Free Press. Thanks for doing this.
You bet. Have a great week. Take care.
Right on. There is Mike McIntyre. And as we mentioned right off the bat when I was saying, tomorrow is the Canucks. And then the Seattle Kraken come to town on Thursday night. We got a little Thursday night crew getting ready for hopefully continuing our perfect record as a WST group this year. If you haven't got your tickets already, go to winnipegjets.com/WST. I believe there are 6 tickets remaining in the section. Your ticket includes a beverage, and we'll love to see you all there. Connor, who's joining us later on today, is actually going to be coming out of the press box for the first time in a couple years and joining us there. So it should be a lot of fun. winnipegjets.com/WST. Remo, maybe throw the link in the chat for people if they want to jump on it right now. Hey, nice super chat from Stan Scott. Maybe they can use some combinations against some teams and other combinations against other teams. Doesn't have to be completely set in stone, maybe. Then the opponent won't necessarily know what combination to expect. Interesting to discuss. We'll talk about it with Kevin Sawyer coming up in just a minute. Before we do that, huge thanks to our great sponsors at Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. We are into 2025, and of course, Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start some new ones for the new year waiting for you down at Princess Auto. Now, you can visit them in store on Panet Road on Portage Avenue West, out in Brandon for our friends at Westman, or you can also get those wheels turning in between your ears by checking out everything going on at Princess Auto online and shop 24/7 at princessauto.com. I know it's cold outside, but it won't be long before we're back at Princess Auto Stadium cheering on the Bombers. As we mentioned, Willie Jefferson back and Dylan Mitchell just signed today by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Big cheers to the gang at Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. And speaking of the Bombers, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. On your next trip to your local Manitoba liquor marts, make sure to Keep your eyes out for Canada's #1 oldest favorite Canadian whiskey since 1848 Canadian Club, the Canadian Club Original, the Canadian Club Classic, Canadian Club 100% Rye, all waiting for you. And if you're lucky, you might find one of the last few remaining bottles of the Invitation Series, the Canadian Club 18-year-old that just won gold at the 2024 Wine and Spirits Awards. And, of course, a big thanks to Wallace & Wallace for their support of WST as well. Wallace & Wallace are the fencing and overhead door specialists in town, doing it since 1946. Now, if your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, chain link, welded wire, wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, Wallace & Wallace has the biggest selection of overhead garage doors in town as well. There's one perfectly suited to match your home and add value to it at the same time. So give Wallace & Wallace a call for all your fencing and overhead door needs, 452-2700. They'll be happy to set up a time to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also check them out online, wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop down and see them in person at their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. All right, let's talk some more Jets. We'll get to NFL playoffs a little later on when Connor jumps on with myself and Michael. But a pleasure to welcome in TSN Jets analyst Kevin Sawyer, coming out of a real fun weekend at the downtown arena. Kev, what's going on? How are you?
Oh, loving life, bud. Just finished practice, watched all the new combinations, a little bit of excitement at the rink, but yeah, things are good.
Things are good. I mean, good vibes for the team and the fan base coming out of Saturday night. Listen, before we get to Saturday, I want to ask you about Friday. Because being in the stands, that was one of those games that, frankly, was kind of frustrating for the first 40 minutes. I mean, there wasn't a lot happening. And, I mean, there were shades of what the Kings did to the Jets earlier this season when they held them to a season-low 14 shots against. Now, credit to the power play and the big boys up front for really getting things going, drawing a couple penalties, converting on the power play to get it to OT. But what is it about the Kings that just make those games such low event slugfests?
Well, first, it's medicine for me. Like, I think that's exactly what the Jets need more of as far as the style of play that's coming at you. It, to me, was the closest to a playoff game. Scott Arniel said that, too, after the game, where, you know, people don't want to talk about playoffs too much when it's the first half of the season. But now we're in the second half of the season, and to me, that is exactly what the Jets need in their face more. And the difference between this game and the last time they played when they had 14 shots on net in LA was the middle of that grinder trip and you're hitting all the time zones. And so is it a real test? Are you fresh? This time the Jets were fresh, more healthy. And listen, frustrating is right, but you can't let it be frustrating. That's the key. And I thought that the Jets were good. I thought they were outplayed at some points of the game, but what I liked about it is in the playoffs, as you know, you get down to the best 16 teams and you go to round 2, now you're down to the top 8 teams. And teams find ways to frustrate you. They want to close things down and they wait for mistakes and then they pounce. That's the style of game that it was against the LA Kings. I like the fact that the Jets didn't get frustrated when they weren't able to generate. I thought that they did try to make too many plays maybe earlier in that game, but they hung around long enough, and I think it was a good step in the right direction as far as playing against one of the best teams. Listen, LA last year was a 1-3-1 team that was thriving on just shutting other teams down, and they wanted to win 1-0. Although they won 2-1 in overtime, they're a team that attacks now as well. Like they've got a different version of themselves, offensively speaking. Jim Hiller does a really good job, kind of selling defense leads to offense, a lot like Arniel does with this team here in Winnipeg. So a difficult game to play in. I thought the Jets passed a lot of tests as far as sticking to your structure, staying patient, and not pressing for offense late in the game where you weren't getting very much.
You know, I'll also give a hat tip to Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde in that I thought they came out and played with a greater sense of urgency, shall we say, in that third period, knowing that they were down a goal, knowing that nothing was going to come easy against the LA Kings. And it wasn't that they created it at 5-on-5, but they created some chances to get onto the power play. And Kev, this power play, I mean, we're now into the second half of the season. and the magic has not worn off at all. And I mean, that pass that Gabe Vilardi made to Mark Scheifele was so damn beautiful. I mean, they're finding ways to make a difference even when the team might not be their best, or they're going up against an opponent that's just not allowing them to do some of the things they like to do the most. And, you know, that was the difference in losing in regulation or getting at least a point and then giving your chance to go for 2.
It's harder on those guys than it is on anybody else, because it forces them to have to evacuate what makes them good more than any other line, right? They're a speed off the rush skill, want to make plays, and they need to. But finding the right time and knowing when you have to just chip the puck in and chase it down, hunt it down, it's harder on them than anybody else. You try to sell to an elite, a skilled player in the NHL, we want you to dump the puck. We want you to cycle the puck. Not an easy thing to do. You're bang on right, where they hung around, they played the right style of a game, earned some power plays, and they pushed it to overtime. Listen, that pass from Vilardi, for him to take that pass and turn on his forehand, almost every other guy would take that pass, turn, take a step, stick handle it once, and then make that pass on the forehand. It's easier to take up to one touch it on your backhand, no look, which Vilardi has done many times. But to curl on your forehand, wrap your toe around that puck, not move your feet, and move the puck that quickly on his forehand, that was maybe more special than a lot of people understand. It was brilliant. I think the defenders were all expecting it to go to the right of his body. He turned, made the pass. It was an easy. I would have missed the net by 20 feet, but Scheifele had a
Yeah, for him, that was a no-brainer. And I mean, as I said, the chances were so few and far in between, and you really had to work hard to earn them. And there was a series of things that started earlier in that third period that ended up getting to the end. I mean, just before we move on to Saturday, the game started with the presentation to Connor Hellebuyck, and I mean, it's kind of a good transition into his game on Saturday, but what a cool ceremony. We were talking earlier about the pop that Buff got when he came onto the screen, the entire team going there, his family a part of it. And then his team sort of gave Connor another present on Saturday night after all the gifts on Friday, the best defensive performance of the season and a complete shutdown of the Colorado Avalanche. Usually if we're talking about a shutout, we're saying, well, Connor Hellebuyck was obviously the standout player of the game. This entire team, and we'll get to the new look line with Adam Lowry and Nikolai Ehlers, hard to imagine, and you could just see how happy Arneal was after the game. I mean, if we're talking about things that can translate to the playoffs, roll the tape of Saturday night against the Colorado Avalanche.
100%. There's so much to unpack with it. And the first thing is the drastic change in style from Friday to Saturday. The two totally different style of teams that you're playing, from LA, which we just covered, to the Avalanche that are run and gun. They want to beat you with speed. And I think it says so much. Like, there's people that are, the outside noise going to say, oh, you got Connor Hellebuyck, and oh yeah, you win because this team isn't one of the best defensive teams because of Connor Hellebuyck. Of course, it's a huge part of it. But, I mean, you don't punish other teams for having McKinnon and Makar. Hellebuyck is a huge part of this. There's no doubt. For me, they've built their systems around their Vezina-winning goaltender. But it's important to make sure that you win games where he isn't the star player. And you look at Nashville a couple of games ago, and he willed them to his 300th win. The 5-on-3, how many shots he stopped in the third period. I think 11 of 12, a lot of grade A danger chances against. He was the story. But he wasn't the story against the Avalanche. It was the team defense. It was, and listen, like, there's not a whole lot of continuity in the line structure. We're going to get to that, I know. But, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for you to think the team could be slow, a little bit off, because they've got different combinations. But that's the sign of a well-coached hockey team, by the way, is when you can shuffle your lines around and you still stick to what matters to you most, and that is protect the middle, or force speed players to the outside, make it easy, give some predictability to your goaltender. As big of a playoff style of game as it was against LA, and that's what it's going to feel like in the playoffs. The same is true against Colorado, because you're going to have different variations of different style of teams coming at you. And in 2 quick games in a back-to-back weekend for Winnipeg, they proved that they can win in very different ways. And that's exactly what the weekend meant for me as an analyst. It's impressive.
I was in the lower bowl for the game, and it was interesting seeing the line shakeups that happened at the beginning of the game, and it didn't take very long for Nikolai Ehlers to plant his flag in the ground and say, I am completely in with this. 72 seconds in, he scores. But honestly, the story for me wasn't, Ehlers popping 2 playing with Adam Lowry. It was what that line with Ehlers on it was able to do in the matchup against Nathan MacKinnon all night long. Like, I don't know what your thoughts were about that combination before we actually saw it on the ice last night against elite NHL competition. But I totally got why Scott Arniel after the game said it certainly gives me something to think about moving forward. I mean, Ehlers was energized by it. He spoke about it afterwards. And listen, Adam Lowry and Alex Iafallo have been so important to this team, playing different roles all season long. It was a great start for a line that was sort of put together out of necessity. But as Mike just mentioned, sometimes you see something and it works, and you realize, well, wait a second, maybe we're onto something here.
Yeah, like it doesn't surprise me, but I would say it went beyond what I expected, just considering that they haven't had any reps together. Listen, the big picture here is, okay, what does that line give you and what does it leave you with? And so, listen, Adam Lowry is the second line centerman in my mind. Like, we don't ever talk about skill from Adam Lowry or very much of it. He's sneaky fast. He's not quick, but he's sneaky faster than most people think. He's got more skill than most people give him credit for. And I mean, to me, that is exactly what Nikolai Ehlers needs. That's exactly what this team needs on their second line. But what does it leave for your third line? Can Rasmus Kupari or Vladimir Nemestikov play enough of a role to shut down? Or if Adam Lowry's second line with Ehlers is going to shut down, then can that third line score and win their matchups? Well, the answer right now would be no, because when you have Nemestikov with Perfetti, and now Perfetti's had points in 4 of his last 20 games. It's not enough. You'll be the first to admit that. So getting away from what it leaves you with, I'll tell you, the effects of what this could mean for the Winnipeg Jets. Let's just talk about Nikolai Ehlers. Last I checked, he's a UFA at the end of this season. And how exciting would it be for a guy like Nikolai Ehlers to say, I get to play with an Adam Lowry, and what that's going to do for him. I mean, I think 7 of Nick's last 13 points have been on the power play. He's been good 5-on-5. That line hasn't been good enough with Perfetti up on that second line with Nemestikov. It just hasn't been good enough. So does Nikolai Ehlers perhaps want to sign in Winnipeg more so? Maybe he already wants to. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but that sets up nicely to have a dynamic winger that you can't replace to come back. And to have Adam Lowry be able to produce set plays up, he is going to bring the best version of Nikolai Ehlers out. Today we were talking at the rink. Adam communicates like a coach, and he understands not only what he needs to be doing, but he knows what his wingers should be doing, whether they're the first forechecker, second, third. Man, this is going to get a lot of juice for the team, for Nikolai Ehlers. But now the question still remains: what's left? What is the other team? What are the other lines set up for?
Well, and it kind of, we've always been talking about, they would love to get that second line center to come in and play in between, well, presumably before we were talking Ehlers and Perfetti. If this line can score and win their matchups and do it against the likes of Nathan MacKinnon, I mean, what's possible in future games going forward? And I brought this, I'm glad you went there with Ehlers, because listen, I mean, there hasn't really been much reporting on it. We don't really know where his head's at, and I think a lot will be determined by what happens the end of this year. But I mentioned to Mike, I mean, I'll just say on the surface, with how pumped he was about the way things went, what he had to say about Adam Lowry, with the responsibility that comes with playing with 17, I don't think this can do anything. And obviously, team success is going to be a big part of it as well. But if the team is successful and he feels a big part of it, maybe in a different way than he has been before, I don't think that does anything but maybe help the chances that he sticks around. And that'll make a lot of Jet fans happy, because he is certainly as dynamic and popular a player as the Jets have. And I think everyone that cheers on the team would love to see him stick around for another few years.
Totally. I mean, bang on for sure. Listen, I want to share this with you because this was a conversation I had 2 seasons ago, and it happened to be with Kevin Fiala and LA. And their power play was at that time run by Jim Hiller, now head coach, who does an unbelievable job on special teams with power plays. Everywhere he's gone, Toronto, Detroit, the Islanders, their power play has been more than reasonable. And Kevin Fiala said something to me that stuck with me. And I said, what do you like about Jim Hiller, the way he runs the power play? And he said, we don't wait for something to go wrong before we make change. We make change when things are going well. And I thought, well, what a thought that is. Like, not very often do people, teams, anybody, parents, do you make changes when things are going the way you want them to? But that's what Kevin Fiala told me about that, and that stuck with me. And I remember thinking to myself here in the past with the Jets, and I mean this with all due respect, with the coaching staff, man, those guys know what they're doing. But why wait for an injury, the necessity to lead to an adjustment where in the playoffs, things don't go well, maybe you get injuries. And I think it's a good time to start maybe tinkering with some lines here like we're seeing right now when things are going well, when guys are healthy, not just when things don't go well. This is the Winnipeg Jets for me are one team in the NHL that have kept their line combinations when healthy more than any other team in the NHL. That's a positive. Chemistry is a real thing. You're certainly not touching the top line, but they're producing. I think it's important to start playing around with this where does Lowry go back down to the third line, and do they probably at some point that's going to happen? But more of these types of changes for 3 or 4 games maybe, so that when you get to the playoffs, if somebody gets injured or even if they don't, but you're not scoring, you're not at your best, switch it up and it's not such a shock. I'm a big fan of what we're seeing here. I hope there's, at the right timing, I hope we see a little bit more of this as the season gets towards the end.
Just while we're on the topic of that line, and obviously Ehlers was great on Saturday night. Adam Lowry has been an absolute beast all season long. I wanted to get your perspective on how important Alex Iafallo is to this hockey team. I mean, speaking of guys that don't have contracts for next year, I really do hope that they find a way to keep him around because he has fit in. And someone compared him earlier in the chat today to Matthew Perreault, a guy that you could put in multiple different lines and does the right thing. And, we started thinking about, Perreault. I can't remember a guy with a better stick on the Jets than Alex Iafallo in a long, long time. The winning the battles, the penalty kill that he is that he does. This is a guy I think is a little underappreciated, to be honest, Kevin. I mean, just fill us in on your thoughts on Iafallo overall as a player and how important he's been to Jet success this year.
It's normal for a guy that doesn't show up on the score sheet regularly to be underappreciated. Dylan DeMello is another example where, you don't talk about him all the time, but he's getting the job done. And the things that DeMello does are a lot like Iafallo. The decisions they make, the plays that they make, get the puck into the hands of the right people at the right time, or it gets the puck out of the hands of the right people at the right time. Iafallo is like a golden retriever. Like, you throw the stick and he runs and gets it and brings it back to you. Like he's the dog, and on no matter what line he's on. And you go way back where he was on the top line for a couple of years at least with Kopitar and Kempe or Brown. You go back that far where it's not like playing on the first line is something he hasn't done before. He can play top 6 minutes. He can play top or bottom 6 minutes. His game is completely transferable. Does he tweak what he does? Yes, you have to a little bit. You have to think a little bit differently as far as how quickly you're going to move the puck and where you're moving the puck to when you're playing on a top 6 versus a bottom 6. But he changes very little about who he is. So it's the predictability with him. The other thing is he's got quick feet, got quick hands. Like you can't move up and down the lineup if you can't skate. Matthew Perreault was the same way. It's a great comparison. I'll tell you this quickly. So right on the other side of the wall here, behind my camera, is where Al lives. He's my neighbor, along with Vladimir Nemestikov. So let's get away from hockey. He loves being a Winnipegger. He fishes, he hunts. You should see his truck down, his Jeep down in the parkade. It's full of mud. He looks for adventures. He's a Winnipeg guy for sure. They mess around with each other. Like right outside, they've got decorations on each other's doors. He's a spirit bearer. And I remember my time in the American Hockey League, Huss, where everybody was somewhat on the same level as far as, okay, pay scale. Everybody had a lot of free time. You spend most of your time together, and you did a lot of things like Al Iafallo does at the NHL level. He brings the joy to another level. He's one of those guys. He wants to be here. Will he continue? I think that the Jets are probably going to be able to get him at a better value than maybe he's making right now, all due respect. But you're right. You cannot find guys like that mean that much in the room, that are liked as much as he's liked, and then you can put him in literally any line. Both sides, doesn't matter. He can do it. Huge part.
I mean, listen, he's contributed on both special teams. He's played, listen, when he has been on the fourth line, that has been the best incarnation of the fourth line. And I, for a long time, kind of thought that they might end up, and this was no shot to Mason Appleton, who was great last year, this year so far as well, had a career year last season and actually outscored Niederreiter and Lowry for the entire season. But I kind of thought that maybe they would end up at some point, this is last year, with Iafallo in that spot. And listen, credit to Appleton for holding the spot, and that line was really good. But, we're seeing the versatility of Iafallo in so many different ways, and Saturday night was a perfect example of that. But for that line to go up against McKinnon, the first time Oilers have been playing with those guys, and have better results. I mean, the high danger chances, they had none in the second and third period. I mean, that just doesn't happen against the Colorado Avalanche, Kevin.
And you look at Nikolai Ehlers, the use of speed with the puck, without the puck. And he values that more. And when he's with a guy like with Adam Lowry, he'll value it even more. It's impossible when you play with a guy like with Adam that plays the game so heavy, hard, and right, to not feel even more responsibility to make sure that you're doing the same thing. Nick's game has grown. He's matured over the years. You guys have seen it, so have I. He still has to be creative and push for offense at the right times. But when they don't have the puck, nobody on this team will make Nikolai Ehlers more accountable with his speed to get it back. He was already good in that area, in my opinion. Maybe it's time for this organization to stop saying we need to find a second-line center. And maybe it's time to shift that mentality as we need to find a replacement for Adam Lowry on the third line. Maybe. It's only been one game, but I won't be shocked whatsoever to see the same type of results with Adam and Nikolai Ehlers together as the games get harder.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I mean, Lowry, what can you say about what he's done for this team? And the choice to make him captain when they did continues to bear fruit each and every night. The guy's is beloved.
Sorry to cut you off. I want to share a quick story about Adam Lowry here, just to kind of give some people some perspective of what kind of a guy this is. So our flight crew, the players are very, very tight with our flight crew. All three of them are from Toronto. One of them, his name is Yan, and he just turned 50 yesterday. So Yan, his family, and our flight crew flew to Winnipeg, and we played a hockey game at CLC yesterday, had cake in the locker room, went out for dinner. Somehow Adam Lowry found out that Yan was coming for his 50th birthday, showed up at the hockey game, was standing on the bench. There was a bunch of people around, family and friends. And I thought, wow, what a class act. Laos shows up for 5 or 10 minutes, shakes some hands, goes. He watched the entire hour hockey game. And then we went into the room, we had cake. He stayed the entire time. And then he took the families and some of the people for a tour of the Jets locker room with Jay McMaster. He was there for 2 hours on a day off. And he wasn't doing it out of obligation. He did it because I think he probably knew what it meant to other people. And he's a good person that appreciates other good. This is a one-of-one captain for the Winnipeg Jets. He's not only the player we're talking about now, but this guy is for real. He's a great person.
You know what? And listen, you love to hear stories like that. And while we're doling out off day love to some members of the Winnipeg Jets, his normal two line mates, Nino Niederreiter and Alex Iafallo, yesterday on the bench out at the Iceplex with the U13 Jets Hockey Academy kids, having whooping it up with them and supporting them as sort of guest coaches. I know they work with them when they have time throughout the year. And if you saw the video that the Jets put out, there they are, high-fiving after goals and getting into it. It it's a good group, and it is a very easy one to cheer for based on what they do on the ice, but it is really cool to kind of hear stories like you just mentioned with Adam Lowry and seeing things like this, that they're doing more than just coming in, cashing a paycheck as NHLers, and then getting out the first day after the season ends.
The culture, the one thing that I've learned through professional hockey and as a player or as a broadcaster or whatever is you got zero chance of winning if you don't have culture. And you can have talent, but you know what? Work beats talent unless talent works. And that's what I'm seeing here these last couple of years. And I've made mention of it on the broadcast. I have to be careful not to talk too much about this because it excites me so much because I'm behind the scenes, I'm on the road, I'm on the plane, and I know these guys, and they not only like each other, but they care about each other. They care about the community. You can feel it, and it's impossible not to get excited when it's like a contact high when you're near these guys. We're talking about these three, but it's everybody to a man. There has been such a seismic shift in culture here. And I should be careful because it insinuates it wasn't good. It wasn't good here 3 years ago. It wasn't good. I just don't want to be disrespectful of the people in the past. It needed to change. It changed. And I don't think I saw it changing this much in such a short amount of time. To change a culture takes time, and it's like turning a ship around at sea. I mean, it is a process. It feels almost too good to be true in that sense where there's a brotherhood happening here. Not only do they like each other, not only do they respect each other, but they like Winnipeg. And that, man, you have to have that if you want to win. They've got it.
No, there's no doubt. And you know what? It's kind of funny you mentioned that, just closing with the Canucks here tomorrow night. I mean, listen, we've heard all the noise around this team. And you know, for a lot of Jet fans, myself included, it sort of gives me PTSD to the undoing of this team in 18-19, when by all accounts, they should have absolutely been there with the top teams in the league and kind of internally combusted. And they've been working out of that. Rick Bowness gets a ton of credit for what he did. Scott Arniel has sort of carried the torch going forward. But Vancouver's going through it right now, and you know, you see what's happened. I mean, when you don't have everybody on the same page, especially your top players, it can be very problematic. And then everybody else has to deal with it, and that's what they are going through right now. Just quick thought on the challenge of the Canucks coming in tomorrow as the Jets look to keep this homestand going. Well, you know what? I was a teammate of Rick Tocchet for little splurts here and there in Boston and in Arizona, so I know Tock pretty well. You guys see it too. Like, and this guy's a competitive dude, and that's contagious in that locker room. They're wounded. There's no doubt. They talk about you don't have to like each other. You got to respect each other. It's not a distraction. That's just what you have to say. It is a distraction, and you do to some degree have to like each other. You don't have to be best friends, but there's problems. There's no doubt. But knowing Rick Tocchet and knowing how, if there's a man that can hold the line and lead the right way, he won't stray from his core beliefs, and his core beliefs are good. I mean, Rick Bowness and him have coached together in the past, and they're similar in the ways that they've adapted into new school, but they haven't abandoned their old school values as well, and they've found a way to amalgamate those into today's NHL. I think Rick Tocchet's one of the best at doing that. So yeah, wounded. Hey, they just shut out the Maple Leafs, and they're certainly not a team to overlook. They've got a ton of skill as well. Kev, can't tell you all the love you're getting in the chat. This has been such a fun conversation today. Thanks so much for doing this. Keep those pipes ready for a good one tomorrow with the Canucks. A one anthem game at Canada Life Centre as the homestand continues. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Let's do it again. Thanks for having me, bud. Looking forward to it. There's Kevin Sawyer, TSN analyst. You know where he'll be tomorrow, in between the benches. Canada Life Centre, 7 o'clock puck drop for the Jets and the Vancouver Canucks. You know, coming out of that great chat with Kevin, I want to put this to you all that are with us live right now on YouTube. Pushing 500 in the chat. Gotta love it. People are fired up after a big weekend for the Winnipeg Jets. Let's get to the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Shout out to the Not Boys, basically. I saw them, Eric Hrabchak on the weekend. They took Eric where you have to go when you're coming back to the Peg for a weekend. Transcona, of course, the Spike, winner of T-Kona Poly was there. But listen, no, the question of the day, I just love your comments and thoughts on the potential of Ehlers with Adam Lowry and Alex Iafallo. Let us know right now in the chat. We'll get to some of your feedback coming up in just a couple minutes in Fan Feedback, brought to you by Fans First. In the meantime, let's give a big cheers to our great sponsors and friends over at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right, had a few of those on the weekend, celebrating that big win on Saturday night. Also made my way down to BP on the weekend. No better place to... Now, I'm obviously always at the games. If you can't make the game, your next best place is to go to your local Boston Pizza, pick a player contest, win some great food and prizes from Boston Pizza and Royal Sports, and shout out on those world-famous BP wings, my absolute favorite, the gourmet pizzas, and an ice-cold schooner or two as well. BP's will be rocking tonight because we've got the final wild card game, Minnesota Vikings, Los Angeles Rams. Unfortunately, had to move to Arizona because of the horrible fire outbreak in Southern California. The game will be on at your local BP with big sound, great prizes as well. So if you're looking for a place to gather with your crew tonight, get on down to BP. And if you just can't leave the house because it's too damn cold, well, good news. You can get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, Royal Sports is rocking now into January. NFL playoffs are here. If you've been negligent in picking up your fan gear for your favorite NFL team, if you're lucky enough to still have them alive, Royal Sports has you covered. And listen, there is no better place for Jet fans to go when you're talking about hats, hoodies, jerseys, Q-zips, you name it. Royal has it. The biggest selection of Winnipeg Jets merchandise you will find anywhere. And obviously the entire league represented as well. Tons of Bomber gear. It is all there for you. Not to mention the biggest hockey department in town is the original hockey superstore in Winnipeg. And while you're there, make sure to check out all the cool stuff on the Kings skate, snow, and surf side. And by the way, I should mention too, with the River Trail open and now fully extended all the way to the Hugo Dock, if you are looking for skates, we know skates, at a high level can be really expensive. Royal does have some relatively inexpensive options for just casual skaters that just want something that they can throw on the blades and have some fun on the weekend. So Royal Sports has got you covered for that as well. All right, let's... I'm going to bring in Connor in just a second. We'll hit him with this, but, a lot of great... Let's just get to fan feedback right now from the weekend. And, of course, fan feedback for Fans First with our question. Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market with no fees, period. When you go on that site and you're looking around the arena, look at those tickets, what you see is what you pay. And from a seller's perspective, the best customer service, the easiest functionality. As a season ticket holder that occasionally has to sell a couple of my tickets, I always do it at Fans First, and a good place to pick up some last-minute ones as well. Check out the website today, fansfirst.ca. All right, well, Phyllis, Ehlers' number one fan, yes, please, to the line of 17, centering 27-9. Give it a sample size of 10 games at least. Adam Douglas, just with some love for Kevin Sawyer. Kev's a great guy, ran into him at a watering hole after a couple of games. Very personable. And then Dom Zappia said, met Sawyer last game. Like everyone is saying, told us Jets need together on forward lines 2C, need a tough fourth D-man as well. Our friend, the Steminist, love Ehlers, Iafallo, and Lowry. Two guys that get the puck and create space. Then Ehlers creates more space with his speed and unpredictability. Lots more great thoughts. Dom Zappia also needed to see the Lowry line on the road to make any judgment. and David Martino. Leave that line together for a decent run. Great stuff on all of this. You let us know your thoughts on that line and more with fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First. Again, fansfirst.ca, by fans, for fans, no fees. All right. T. Conapoli is saying, go Vikes, and Ehlers we trust is wondering whether the Vikings will break the curse. We're going to talk NFL, and we're going to talk Jets as we get into a little Monday three-man weave, as Michael Remis is already here, and Connor Hrabchak now joins us on the program. Connor, what's up going on? Great stuff yesterday with another awesome edition of WST Sunday Live. As you will well know by now, doing this regularly as consistently as you have, you, Liz, and Jacob having a lot more fun on Sunday mornings after Saturday nights like we just saw at Canada Life Center.
Absolutely. And we had our biggest live crowd on Sunday, this past Sunday. Over 200 people joined us live on a Sunday morning.
Bright and early.
Bright and early. Yeah, it was awesome. We had a ton of fun. Nice to see everyone there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. There was so much to talk about coming out of the weekend. Obviously, you guys had your show Friday. There were 2 games between then, the Hellebuck celebration, the great performance Saturday night, and then got to kick my feet up and watch some NFL football on Sunday, and going to do the same tonight. So it was a great weekend. Thanks everyone for joining us, and happy to talk more NFL, more Jets.
Well, listen, we'll get to the NFL in a minute, but let's just get your perspective on what we've been talking about. And listen, the weekend overall, amazing. The ceremony for Hellebuck, I will say a bit of more of a dreadful game to watch, at least for the first 2 periods against the Kings. But no one was talking about that on Saturday night when the Jets ran out. But what did you think? Let me ask you, what would you have thought beforehand, the concept of Ehlers playing with Lowry and Iafallo, and albeit just 1 game? I mean, early results were phenomenal.
Yeah, before the game, that's a really interesting question. I don't know if I would have thought it would have worked as well as it would.
I'm right there with you.
I really like the dynamic of having like a defensive impact player with a player like Ehlers who's dominant in transition and can hold on to the puck in the offensive zone, because then Lowry's playing less defense, and when he is playing defense, we know he's one of the best defensive setters in the league. So Nikolai Ehlers brings a new dynamic to that line, and Kevin Sawyer brought it up right at the end there, and he kind of like shelved it and said, it's only 1 game, but we discussed this on Sunday. What if Adam Lowry's the 2C of this hockey team going forward? And then the conversation changes around the trade deadline of, is it a 2C or a top 4 defenseman? You then have to spend way less assets to acquire a 3C to potentially be between Niederreiter and Perfetti or whoever's on that third line at the time. But Adam Lowry is playing at a near 50-point pace on the third line with no power play time. Like, that is second line center production for a guy who has his defensive impacts. Another reason I really like this line is because you guys documented it at the top of the show. If the season ended today, the Jets and the Avs would be playing in round 1. Let's say you roll with Connor Scheifele-Velarde, Ehlers, whoever, Perfetti, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, and you lose 5-1 in game 1. What is the plan at that point, right? You have to have an adjustment, because last year, Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and whoever was on their wing at the time had their way with the Lowry line. They tried to shut them down, but it was just, pun intended, an avalanche of offense every time those guys were on the ice. So if you're going to be playing Colorado or you're going to be playing Dallas in the first round, you need to have a pivot option if your plan A doesn't work. We know what the Jets' plan A is. They've ran the same lines all season long. But if you lose 5-1 in game 1 to the Avs and McKinnon and Makar have this great night, you need to have something else that worked. And on Saturday night, the duo of Lowry and Ehlers definitely worked against that top line.
And Reem, I mean, as we mentioned, I mean, as impressive as it was, Ehlers scoring 72 seconds in and giving the crowd and the team a big boost, the most impressive part of the entire performance by that line wasn't the 2 goals. It was the fact that they absolutely eliminated and shut down the reigning Hart Trophy winner and arguably the most dangerous line in hockey.
Yeah, 100%. And this is why that line works so well, Huss. You got the skinny guy in Ehlers, you got the big guy in Adam Lowry, and I think Iafallo's a medium guy. It's just
Nintendo Ice Hockey Theory 101.
Yeah, Nintendo Ice Hockey Theory. Perfectly balanced line. You bring 3 different skill sets. And yeah, so, we've only had a very small sample size of 1 game, but hey, if you're going up against anyone, it's going to be the one of the top lines, Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, and whoever's been on the other wing, if it's Lehkonen or Drouin, and they definitely passed the test. Ehlers, ripping the goal early, and it was a nicely done performance by that line. So hey, it's one game. We want to jump the gun and say, hey, Lowry's the new second-line center. It's fun to overreact. I agree. But let's see how they do this week against different opponents. But you have to like what you saw. And, I think it's definitely a good thing, Huss, because this team, they hadn't changed any of the lines at all season. And what's going to happen, in the playoffs if you have an injury and guys aren't used to playing each other. And I liked what Kevin said as well, saying, hey, this is a good time to experiment, try out some different things. Maybe you have lines that work. So it was nicely done. Hey, it beats the ice hockey theory of having different players. You can't just have all skinny guys on one line, Huss. That's not going to get it done. You need a mix, and it was a great mix there on Saturday.
Well, and here's the thing, and like Kevin, and I think I would probably agree with this. I mean, Adam Lowry is the 2C on the Winnipeg Jets, and really has been all year long. I mean, you look at the matchups, you look at the minutes played. I mean, Adam Lowry would be right up there. And listen, this is not a slight of Vlad Nemetsnikov, because I think he's done everything that's been asked of him and more. But Connor, I mean, we have seen the second line be in neutral for a number of weeks. And, some sort of change with that line, I think, was inevitable in some ways. But the benefits to getting Nikolai Ehlers out there more engaged, and the opportunity to show that he can play with players like that, I think there's huge benefits. Not only the thought that I think he might really feel a lot more a part of this right now, have some more personal success, and you would hope that might make him more open to the idea of sticking around past here. But like the one thing we haven't talked a lot about today, just because of all the good stuff coming out of the weekend, is that they've got to find a way to get Cole Perfetti going. And listen, I thought he was good on Saturday. I actually thought he played one of his best games in a while. He had some chances, that group, and playing with Kapari for the first time, like they had never done that before. I thought Nino was really engaged and was sort of the anchor of that line. But the bottom line right now is, especially if you stick with Ehlers playing with Iafallo and Lowry for the next little while, a mix that involves a fourth line that can come up on the right end of the ledger in their matchups, and trying to find a way to get a little bit more offensively while maintaining a good defense for your third line if Cole Perfetti is going to be on it.
I could not agree more. And that second line, they haven't produced enough. They would tell you that. And one thing that Nikolai Ehlers also told us is after the game, he thought it was his best all-around game of the season. And I think all of us would agree that that was the case. Not only did he score the goal early and the empty netter late, but they shut down the MacKinnon line in those matchups. The high danger chances, just looking at natural stat trick here, 4-1 for the Ehlers, Lowry, Iafallo line, and they went up against MacKinnon all night long. So they not only outchanced that line, but outscored them as well. Bumping Cole Perfetti down the lineup, giving him a new look with Nino Niederreiter. I don't think the chemistry has been there all year long with Ehlers and Perfetti, and I think both players have really struggled with that at 5-on-5. So to give that a little bit of a new look, I think is a big plus. The Jets, they're a deep team. They can do these things. They can switch up these lines. So why not give it a go? And the first test of it was really, really strong. I'm interested to see how they do against Elias Paterson tomorrow and the Vancouver Canucks, right? Another test, another great center in the NHL. Paterson struggled a little bit this year, but I think Nikolai Ehlers played his best all-around game of the season, and it's no coincidence that it was his only game with Adam Lowry, who's in every sense of the word a second-line center. He gets listed as a 3C here all the time, but he produces at an offensive and defensive level as a second-line center. So might as well treat him like one.
And I'll say this. I mean, we can say what we want about Adam Lowry's point production. And, as I said, he's pushing about a 50-point pace right now. He's on a 20-goal pace, which is great. Well, that's what I was about to say. Like, if he plays consistently with Nikolai Ehlers for the next 10 games, 20 games, I will predict that point total, that point per game is going to go up. And at that point, it gives you more options on that third line. Hey, before we get to NFL, I've got to ask you, Connor. I can't get over how sweet was that pass by Gabe Vilardi on the goal on Friday night.
Oh my, yeah.
Like the guy's a wizard.
Yeah. Yeah, you have no clue what he's going to do on the power play. Like, there's so many things that he has shown that he can do at a high level. And how many times have we seen him rip that puck right in the middle of the slot and beat the goalie, right? How many goals has he scored right from that spot? Instead of shooting it, he doesn't even look. He didn't shoulder check. He didn't look. He just knew. He knew the coverage was kind of there. He knew Scheifele was somewhat over there. It just happened to be a tape-to-tape perfect pass. And yeah, Gabe Vilardi just continues to impress. He's over a 70-point pace, over a 35-goal pace so far this season. He's a pending RFA. And yeah, that goal is sweet. On definitely the highlight of the night, obviously before the game, the Hellebuck celebration. And there wasn't much to cheer about until then. But yeah, Gabe Vilardi, especially on the power play, so much fun to watch. And that pass was just ridiculous.
Well, and Reem, I mean, we almost take it for granted right now. But as I mentioned with Kevin, I mean, now into the second half of the season, like we have more than a full half of a campaign already in. And the Jets, not only are they the only team above 30%, they're at 32.3, almost 4 percentage points ahead of the number 2 power play in the league. And, you know, on a game like Friday night where chances were hard to come by, the first line stepping their game up to create a power play opportunity to begin with, and then the connection that these guys have with the man advantage, including Nikolai Ehlers and Josh Morrissey, is something that, you know, we haven't seen. I mean, I would say since Laine first came in, but I'm sure if you go back, I don't even think back then, like the goals might have been spectacular. I don't think they were running a 32% clip. I mean, this is the best power play I think we've ever seen in Winnipeg, and it is a massive reason why the Jets are where they are right now in the standings.
Yeah, last year we had our Jennings watch where they got the trophy for the least goals allowed. Is there a trophy for best power play in the league that we can, you know, have a watch for at the end of the year?
Let's create one right now.
We need to drive some kind of viewership here. The team with the best power play. I mean, 32.3%. And when you watch them on the ice, it's incredible how many goals they've scored off of power play us, where it's like, you know, they win the faceoff, bang, 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 in the back of the net. They seem to know where each other are. I mean, that pass from Vilardi, like, does he even look where Scheifele is? And you think he's going to shoot and just at the last second pulls up and does this crazy draw pass to a guy in the shooting lane who's absolutely wide open. And he's done that a couple times before at the side of the net where he does, gets the puck and does a quick no-look backhand. His eyes all around Vilardi. He knows where everyone is. It has been incredible to watch this power play. 32.3%. Second in the league is Detroit. They had a big weekend playing in Chicago, 28.6, and then the Devils with Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, 28.4. One thing, too, you mentioned Perfetti. I know the scoring, was kind of dried up here. He had a really good first month this season in October, 9 points in 10 games. It's kind of, slowed down November, 5-14, 5-15 December, now 0-5 in January. But on the whole, I mean, he's been pretty solid in terms of goals for, goals against, on ice differential. And, and that's why I think you could excel in this third line role where, more focus on goal prevention while chipping in offense here and there. So I'm curious to see how he's going to progress. Are we at a similar, second half slump like he was in last year? And for him, it's, going to be a big second. Well, he signed a two-year deal in the offseason, not UFA, but hey, he's still looking for that big, the big contract at some point. So something to watch here if he has a similar second half to last season.
I think the 2-year deal is probably a good thing for Perfetti in that, he can, hopefully continue to improve, kind of get back on the score sheet here, hopefully do some damage come postseason time, and then take another step forward next year when it's time to. I was mentioning the power play and comparing it to back in the Laine heyday of the 17-18 season and the 18-19 season. Just for perspective, Jets right now, 32.3%, first place in the National Hockey League. The Jets in 17-18 were fifth in the league at 23.2%. And in the 18-19 regular season, they were fourth at 24.8%. I mean, we're talking 8 percentage points better. That's a lot of goals, and that can be the difference, in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, multiple points in the standings. And I'll tell you what, that point that they mined out of Friday night against LA, kind of got to be disappointed that you can get 2, considering the chances that they had earlier on in overtime. But has been a huge difference. And Connor, just touch on that if you want.
One more thing on the power play that I want to say. We're bringing up the nice goals this week. Tuesday night against Nashville, they scored in 9 seconds on the power play, and all 5 players touched the puck. Right off the faceoff, like Remis just brought up, Pionk to Connor to Scheifele to Ehlers, slap pass to Velarde. It was in the back of the net. Like, it just looked so easy. Everyone was moving. The puck was snapping around. And Liz Hood and I did a Gabriel Velarde deep dive before the season. And I said on that, that show's not usually designed for hot takes, but I said on that Gabe Velarde was the best power play threat the Jets have seen since Patrick Laine. And I feel very validated for that take because he's doing everything. And he's not the guy snapping the puck around, but he's moving into spots. The players, the defenders are taking note of that, and they're guarding him, opening up everything else around him. And that power play, the way they move the puck, the way they move themselves is an absolute treat to watch. It's not just feeding one guy, feeding Kyle Connor one-timers. It's everyone chipping in and scoring in different ways. It's so much fun to watch.
Well, it's funny. I mean, Reem, just on Velarde's role in all of that, it was a couple weeks ago that Velarde scored his 40th goal as a Jet, and he did it in 86 games. And I can't remember who else was around it, but I did remember it was the exact same number as Patrick Laine, who scored 40 goals in his first 86 games as a Winnipeg Jet. And listen, for a long time, and I'd still maintain that Laine's passing ability is slept on. People are just so focused in on the all-world shot that they kind of miss some of those other things. But I will say this, for as productive as Velarde has been scoring goals, the passing, and listen, there's no better example than the brilliance on Friday night. Right. This is a guy that has the ability and has consistently made his line mates and Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor even better. And Remis, I mean, it speaks for itself what this team is doing with the man advantage. But, I mean, overall, Velarde has been all that could have been asked for and more right now that he's playing, touch wood, and he's being able to stay healthy and stay in the lineup.
Yeah, well, when they traded for him, he brings a element that they don't really have. A big guy who can go in the corners, play in front of the net, and he's really meshed well with Scheifele and Connor. And, I mean, you talk about scoring, you look at his numbers right now, he's got 38 points in 44 games, 19 goals, 19 assists. Now, he's going to be due a big contract after this season, but I saw a tweet from Chris Johnston. It was Thursday morning. Now, the numbers have changed, but he noted that none of Canada's top 9 goal scorers since the Four Nations roster was selected were included on the team. And who was leading the charge there is Mark Scheifele, but right behind Gabriel Velarde. And I never really considered him as a guy for Team Canada, but maybe he should have been getting more consideration. You look at him compared to a guy like Sam Bennett, I don't know, you put Velarde, how good would he be in a depth role for Team Canada? So I'm really fascinated what his contract is going to be. He's fit in so well with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. And again, his play in front of the net, on the boards, brings them an element that they didn't have. And just that trade was such a win, the Dubois trade, and against the team that they traded for, with we saw them here Friday. They seem to be doing pretty well since moving on. But I mean, imagine if they had a guy like Gabe Velarde on their team. Pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, listen, just to wrap the convo and the trade chat. I mean, just look at Saturday night's game. You got Velarde on the top line, on the top power play, line number 1. Alex Iafallo playing line 2 with Adam Lowry and Nikolai Ehlers, and Rasmus Kupari moving up into the third line role, along with Nino and Cole Perfetti. And I mean, listen, I think Kupari has way exceeded any expectations I had for him this year. And Alex Iafallo, I mean, I'm big on him and everything that he does right now for the Winnipeg Jets. So It truly is the gift that keeps on giving, that Laine trade, as much as we all wish him well in Montreal, to turn that into Dubois and then turn Dubois into the haul that the Winnipeg Jets had from the LA Kings, with all three of those players playing big roles right now, and the Jets' success is something to be said. All right, listen, we're coming up to 3. We're going to go long today. We got over 400 in chat. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Great to see everybody with us. We got to get to the NFL. We'll get to Coolbet lines in a minute and take a look at what we're cooking up for this Minnesota Rams game. But Connor, let's kind of go through these. First off, the Chargers. Is there any other way to describe what happened on Saturday afternoon than they just simply choked away a game that was absolutely there for the taking? They should have been up by 20 in the second quarter. And unbelievably, they give up 10 points in the last minute of the first quarter. Houston, after doing nothing, turning the football over, goes into the room at home up 4 points, and then unleash Joe Mixon in the second half. Herbert, 4 interceptions. Just an absolute disaster of a team that I think everybody thought was going to go into Houston, win, and move on to Arrowhead next weekend.
Yeah, they were the favorite, and I thought they were going to win as well. But Justin Herbert played probably the worst game of his career in the highest stakes moment. It was, wild card game. He had the game earlier in his career where they blew the massive lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was another one where Justin Herbert in the entire second half wasn't able to put any offense together. But this one was from start to finish. This wasn't one half he looked great, one half he looked terrible. 4 interceptions, one of them being a pick six. If he cut down on the turnovers, the Chargers definitely would have had a better chance in this game. But that shouldn't be the conversation against a team that was favored on the road. This was supposed to be one of the closer games of the weekend, and it was actually one of the blowouts of the weekend, which was a shock to me. But Justin Herbert, easily one of the worst games of his career. He kind of threw that game away.
Reem, what did you make of the curtain jerker, as Feinberg referred to it earlier last week?
I was sad for Charger fans. They were favored on the road. This was supposed to be Justin Herbert's time to prove that he was an above-average NFL QB. I think the jury's kind of been out. Has he just been on a bad team with bad coaching? But even Jim Harbaugh can't stop the Chargers from charging. I actually had flashbacks to, I'm sorry to say, the Zach Collaros in the Grey Cup with the 4 interceptions, one being a pick six. Sorry to I'm sorry to bring it up there, but
vibes were so high. Come on.
But it was just a putrid performance in a game that they were favored, and credit to Houston. So many injuries to their receivers, and Nico Collins stepped up. It was their skill players, 7 catches for 122 and a touchdown, and Joe Mixon as well, carrying for 106. CJ Stroud, he was okay. He wasn't great, but he's better than he's been. Only turned over the ball once, and that's really the difference with the Chargers with the 4 interceptions, including a pick six. So they did have one of the more wild sequences where Herbert gets sacked twice, looks terrible, then throws the long touchdown to Ladd McConkey, and you're thinking, hey, do these guys have life here? But no, they did not. 32.
Thank God. I will just say this, and I will admit to this. I already took my beats on the lock shop today. I may have had the worst weekend that I've had in a decade picking these games against the spread. I am 0-5 going into tonight with the Vikings and the Rams. However, I did at the end of Friday's lock shop say I've got one other bet, and if on a Coolbet, for the playoff weekends, they'll have odds for everybody playing that weekend and who will have the most passing yards, who will have the most rushing yards, who will have the most receiving yards. Well, I went in on Ladd McConkey at 12-1. He's got 197. Now, considering how my luck has gone this weekend, expect Justin Jefferson to maybe get 198. But I'll actually still be up despite the disastrous results of the spread picks if nobody has 198 yards receiving or not. So that was nice. But anyways, the Texans move on, which means the Chiefs are going to be playing in the first game next weekend. I'm going to be there. Cannot wait for it. Our buddy Remis, Robert Littal, BSO?
Yes.
He was joking around about how if you're playing the Texans, you're playing in the first game of the playoff weekend. He said, if the Texans played in the Super Bowl, they might move the game up 4 hours.
Man, I saw the schedule when it came out. They revealed it after saying, I'm like, not even playing the Chiefs can put the Texans away from the Saturday first game time. I actually liked what they did with the schedule here. I think the Saturday night is Lions-Commanders. I think that should be a very entertaining game. And the Sunday night game, I think it's going to be an incredible atmosphere in Buffalo. That's a big one. So they did a good job. And I imagine the Chiefs. I haven't seen what this line is. I imagine the Chiefs are going to be favored by a lot over Houston.
I think they opened at 8 or so. We'll get to those in just a minute. The Ravens, though, are on their way to Buffalo. They beat the hell out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They ran the football 50 times. And, I was saying on the Launch Up, guys, anyone that's played football and played defense particularly, if your opponent is showing you exactly what they are going to do and you have no way to stop it, it is the most discouraging and defeating experience. And that is exactly what happened. Steelers defense meet Derrick Henry over and over and over again, and then mix in a little Lamar Jackson for good measure as well. Listen, I think that might be the scariest result to other teams in the AFC and the rest of it, just as to how much they were committed to the run game, how well. I mean, that's a Pittsburgh defense that is no slouch, and they outclassed them on the weekend. Other than that, Connor, that's the way you draw it up for the Baltimore Ravens. And they remember what happened in the AFC Championship game last year. The Chiefs did a great job early on in stopping their run game, albeit before they got Derrick Henry, and they bailed on it in the second quarter and basically never ran the football again. They forced Lamar Jackson to beat the Chiefs, and he wasn't able to do it. I think we're seeing a much more well-balanced and dangerous team right now, and they go into Buffalo feeling very good and very confident, especially considering how they massacred the Bills head-to-head earlier this year.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's something that you'd say to one of your buddies where it's like, oh, Zay Flowers, the Ravens' top receiver, gets ruled out with a knee injury. I bet the Ravens are going to run the ball 50 times. And it's like, no, they actually did run the ball 50 times. Like, they didn't have any healthy receivers, so they just literally ran the ball with Derrick Henry 26 times, Lamar Jackson 15 times. A few other players got carries, ended up with 300 yards rushing, 299 and 2 touchdowns rushing. And the Bills, if they have one weakness this year, it's their rush defense. So that is the matchup. That's what's going to decide the game on Sunday night, which, like you said, is the main event. But it was, hilarious to see the Ravens. They're like, oh, we don't have any receivers. All right, let's just call 50 run plays and run for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And good luck stopping us, because we have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, which was maybe the best rushing duo or one of the best in NFL history in the backfield at quarterback and running back. And they just imposed their will. And I'm excited to see what they do Sunday night. That game I'm super pumped for.
Oh, my God, that is going to be – that's the matchup that we've been wanting to see. I've particularly been wanting to see, because that would mean that one of those teams would lose and the Chiefs wouldn't have to deal with them like they had to go on the road and beat both of them last year on their way to their second consecutive Super Bowl title. Remo, for the Bills' part, I'll be honest, I was feeling pretty good about my Denver +9 play early on. Bo Nix goes deep. The Denver Broncos get up 7-0. Got a really good defense. They had nothing the rest of the way. I think my takeaway from yesterday was kind of being more impressed with the Buffalo defense that I've been in a long time. And that Josh Allen in that offense is going to get theirs. But, they just strangled the life out of the Broncos in that second half, running away with it.
Yeah, Bo Nix has shown flashes this year, but he's still a rookie QB going on the road. And, maybe you overthought they had some big performances. You thought they could put one up against the Bills, but one question is, or one thing, no one can stop the Bills. As Josh Allen, absolutely incredible, running the ball 46 yards on 8, throwing the ball, passing for 2 touchdowns, and even James Cook, exceptional performance with 120 yards. So how are the Bills offense and the Ravens offense going to clash together with their defenses? You're getting AFC championship caliber match in round 2, and the winner will likely go on to play the Chiefs in what should be another exceptional game. So two big matches, one big match already next weekend, which you think is gonna be really close for this weekend. The story of wild card weekend was how all the games sucked in terms of being competitive. There was one, and it was last night with two teams that you don't think are Super Bowl contenders, although maybe Jaden Daniels does surprise. So, nice performance by the Bills, but it's just, a lead up till next week.
Well, listen, just before we get to last night's game, Connor, the Packers went in to Philly, and listen, these two teams opened the season. Game number 1 in Brazil, as we remember, and it was a thriller. I think 32-26 or so. I don't think we expected that as many points outside in the playoffs. But, I mean, listen, I'm interested in your takeaways from this game because now I am an Eagles hater. Everybody knows that. I own it. I admit it. I wasn't particularly blown away by the way the Eagles played, although their defense is legit. Once you saw the receivers going down, and to me, the minute Jalen Reed was out, despite that incredible run by Josh Jacobs right afterwards, it was hard to imagine a path as, even if Jordan Love was at his absolute best, they were running receivers out there that I had literally never heard of. They're done. Philly moves on. I mean, what are your takeaways from the Eagles, who are going to be playing the winner of tonight's game between the Rams and Minnesota?
Yeah, this was the most disappointing game of the weekend for me. I thought this was going to be the best game. Packers-Eagles was, I think, a 4-point spread. Two teams who, if the Lions are going to lose in the NFC playoffs, these are two teams that could maybe make a push. Obviously, the Eagles are the 2 seed. But yeah, this was disappointing. Christian Watson, a wide receiver for the Packers, got ruled out early in the week because of a knee injury in the last week of the season. Then Jaden Reed goes down. Then Romeo Doubs goes down with a concussion. Like you said, they were running out receivers, like their 5th and 6th best receivers. I think Dontavian Wicks was their top target at that point. So Jordan Love didn't play great. I mean, 20 for 33, 3 interceptions, but didn't really have many weapons. And the Eagles, I mean, I would have liked to see more from their offense. Saquon Barkley also had 25 carries. He got the workhorse load like we saw Derrick Henry and James Cook get. But A.J. Brown, 1 catch for 10 yards. That is something that they'll have to fix going into next week. And they'll get either the Vikings or the Rams, which should be a great game next week. But yeah, this game was disappointing. I kicked my feet up for this one, was excited, and it was kind of a dud because the Packers just had too many injuries to overcome.
Now, you mentioned, Saquon having the huge rushing game. Derrick Henry had the huge rushing game. Running the football seemingly much more important at this time, controlling the clock, controlling the ball, keeping the other playoff level offense off the field. The one team that won that did nothing rushing the football was the Washington Commanders. They ran at a clip of 2.5 yards per carry, which Remis makes what Jaden Daniels did last night that much more impressive for a rookie playing in his first playoff game, to have the poise that he had. Some of the throws that he made on huge third downs were unbelievable. Like, he's already had an amazing rookie season, one of the best we've seen in recent NFL history. That was a bonus, and the Commanders fans are so pumped. I mean, they hadn't won a playoff game, I think, in 18 years, if I'm not mistaken. So another very well-earned accolade for Jaden Daniels in what has been a pretty magical rookie season.
I did enjoy hearing the last quarterback to lead the Washington football franchise to a playoff win was Mark Brunell. It was an incredible stat. First playoff win, I think, since 2005, or 2004 season into 2005. But I mean, what a performance it was. And, Tampa Bay, they've had a pretty leaky defense all season. They get into shootouts, and Jaden Daniels, rookie quarterback, protecting the football, 0 interceptions. They actually had 0 punts in that game as well.
Without running the football successfully at all. It's crazy.
Yeah, and Terry McLaurin with the big game, touchdown, 89 yards. Diami Brown breakout performance. So, I thought, Austin Eckler would have a good game in his return, and Brian Robinson, he's been solid, but they couldn't run the ball against Tampa, but it didn't matter. Jaden Daniels showing he is a legit quarterback, and Commanders fans excited, and I think it's disappointing for Tampa fans. Baker Mayfield had this great year, but they just couldn't get a stop on that final drive, and it was Jaden Daniels rolling out and running it for 2 yards. And he's a guy you can make plays with his legs, running, but also making time to throw the ball as well. So I think they could give Detroit some trouble, Huss, next week. I think that's a pretty good game. That's a Saturday night NFC on Fox. So I'm looking forward to that matchup. I think better matchups next week. Wildcard weekend, since they added the new team, the games are mostly been duds. But this one, this was the one good one. Went down to the wire, and we had a doink go through
for the win.
Dude, how about the kicker coming on with his OCD? Like he kept on adjusting his hair over and over again.
Yeah.
And like, there's no way this guy is going to make this kick. And a little doink and in for it. I'll say this, Connor. If I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneer or a Buck fan, I didn't sleep well last night because as much as Jaden Daniels deserves all the plaudits that we're giving him right now, the Bucks gave that one away. I mean, up for the fumble inside their own 15-yard line was absolutely devastating. And then even when they were down 3 points, midway through the fourth quarter, they had that great drive. They go all the way down there on like the 12-yard line with a 2nd and 1. The first play, they did a fake handoff to Bucky Irving, and then Baker following him almost as a running back behind a lead blocker. That went nowhere. And then to blow a play at such a crucial time on a 3rd down the way they did with the early snap, no one knew what was going on, tackled for a loss and forcing them to take that field goal. Like, even if they just get no gain, I think they go for it on 4th and 1. Washington had been so aggressive all game long. I absolutely think that they do that. They have no one to blame but themselves on offense, because I will say this, as much as the defense wasn't able to get a stop on that final drive, I thought the Bucs defense stepped up big on 4th downs earlier. The ability to stop them deep in their own zone. There was a lot to like about what Tampa did, but if you come up small or make mental mistakes in crucial times, playoff competition like you're going up against at this time of the year, you're not going to win. And that was the undoing for Tampa from where I'm sitting.
For sure. They have nobody to blame but themselves. And Baker Mayfield, I mean, say what you want, 15 for 18, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. He played fine. The biggest takeaway from this game for me was, Tampa kind of killing their own drive there. If they get a touchdown, then Washington has to score. Washington, as soon as they got over midfield, was in kill the clock mode and kick a field goal, because that game was tied 20-20. So they were just burning clock. Jaden Daniels was scrambling, and they got it done. But Jaden Daniels, and I'm biased. I have him in fantasy football. He's amazing in fantasy football because he's such a talented runner. But the sign of a star quarterback is when you're able to elevate the players around you and the offense around you. And in his rookie season, Diami Brown is going for 5 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Like, Diami Brown is probably a 4 receiver on the Eagles or the Packers or whatever other team in the playoffs, but it's Jaden Daniels' number 2 target, and he just went on the road and won, which only I think 3 or 4 quarterbacks have ever done in their rookie season in NFL history. So he's such a superstar. Washington fans deserve it for all the suffering they've been through over the past decade and a bit.
Yeah, this is what they get for having to deal with Dan Snyder all those years. The minute Snyder leaves, they get a franchise quarterback. They win some games. They make it to the playoffs.
And now Snyder has to watch after he sold the team. Yeah, that's the best part. Yeah.
Listen, let's get over to the Coolbet lines right now, because we do have a huge game tonight. And I'm with you. The game I wanted to see the most this weekend was the Packers-Eagles. That one didn't really come through. I think, though, we're going to get a real good one tonight between the Rams and the Vikings. Of course, the Rams are one of only 2 teams to beat the Vikings this year. They handed the Vikings their 2nd loss of the season earlier this year. The Vikings are now 2.5-point favorites against the Rams. Now, important to note that this game was moved because of the fires, the horrible fires in Southern California. So this is going to be, for all intents and purposes, a neutral site game. Very interested to see what the crowd split is of who is there right now. But with the move from LA to Phoenix, the line moved to 2.5. So Vikings 2.5-point favorites tonight, minus 141 on the money line. Rams plus 120. Remis, total on the game is 47.5. Remis, what are you thinking about tonight? Can the Vikings get the job done and move on to take on the Eagles next week in Philly?
Yeah, I wasn't so sure when this game was in LA, but now that it's moved, Huss, I think you got to be more confident about the Vikings. Still, in a dome or in a controlled situation there in Arizona. So I think they'll rebound. Not as bad as they were last week against Detroit.
Sammy Darts needs a big bounce back after that one last week.
I think he's going to have a big bounce. I think it's going to be tough. This should be a very, very solid game, though.
Connor, what about you? How are you feeling about the Vikes tonight?
I like the Vikings tonight. Originally, coming out of last week, we had the show Monday, and I was kind of, on the fence. That was right off of Sam Darnold's bad performance on Sunday night. Maybe there's a little bit of recency bias there. But yeah, I like the Vikings to win and cover tonight. I know it's only 2.5, so that's not really saying much. But I've been a big believer in what they've been doing all year long. Their defense is great. I know the Rams beat the Vikings earlier this year, and they're one of only 2 teams to do it. The Lions beat the Vikings twice, and then the Rams beat the Vikings. But I like Sam Darnold and the Vikings to bounce back, and that defense after they kind of got embarrassed in the run game against Detroit last Sunday night.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's check out our exclusives tonight. There's a whole bunch up in the over at Coolbet, but we do have a parlay that we've put together for, by the way, there is a super boost tonight. This is kind of more for the Edmonton Sports Talk guys, but if you like it, Kyron Williams anytime TD score and Oilers to win, that's boosted from plus 160 to plus 215. There's also a pay dirt parlay, which is Justin Jefferson touchdown, Puka touchdown, Kyron Williams touchdown. That's boosted to plus 651. And then let's see. I guess our Lock Shop exclusive must be. Yeah, here we are. Here's the partner parlay for tonight. We've got Jefferson going over his receiving total, 89.5. So JJ 90 plus yards. Cooper Kupp's total is 48.5, and he had a very quiet last few games. We're buying low on Cooper Kupp tonight. 49 plus receiving yards for Cooper Kupp. And I have to admit, I just assumed that the total in this game would be like 51.5 or something. I was blown away that it's 47.5. So we're going to jump on the over as well. So if you like Justin Jefferson, 90 plus, Cooper Kupp, 49 plus, both receiving yards, and the Vikings Rams to go over 475. In the Coolbet exclusives, we got our boosted parlay to plus 425. That is good to go right now. Now, as you mentioned, Reem, we do have the lines already for these other 3 games. The Chiefs have opened as 8-point favorites at home to the Texans. They're minus 417 favorites to win. Houston's plus 330. The Commanders are 8.5-point dogs in Detroit. Lions laying 8.5 and minus 526, a huge money line favorite. If you are in on the Commanders and you think Jaden Daniels can pull off the upset, plus 400. And man, one of the biggest totals we've seen all year as well, 55.5 for the Commanders and the Lions. Now, the Ravens-Bills, the main event of next week. And Reem, you mentioned how great. I mean, the divisional weekend for me is the best weekend of football all year. You've got 4 games. You've got the best 8 teams remaining. This game opened at 1.5 or 1 for the Bills. It's now flipped. The Ravens are 1-point favorites in this game. And this is really a pick'em game, to be honest with you. So, I mean, the money line was originally Buffalo minus 111, Baltimore minus 105. It switched to the other way around, and now Baltimore minus 114 to win, the Bills minus 103 to win at home. Connor, what's your early thoughts on this one? You guys will have a chance to chop it up Friday with official picks, but are you leaning one way or the other right now, a week out from the big game?
It's the MVP bowl between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Those are the two favorites to win that award. But yeah, I'm leaning Ravens right now, just so how dominant their run game looked against Pittsburgh. And like I said earlier, that's Buffalo's biggest weakness. It's been their biggest weakness all year long, and you saw it when those two teams played earlier in the year. So I think the Ravens' path to victory is maybe a little bit easier than the Bills, where they can just run the ball, control the clock, and kind of press that weakness. So I'm leaning towards the Ravens right now, but yeah, official pick later in the week.
I'm right there with you right now. I just think about which team scares me more as a Chiefs fan. And listen, they're both great. I mean, just the fact that they'll be playing each other is a big, big boost for Kansas City. But the ability for the Ravens now with the addition of Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers, I mean, assuming that he'll be playing, blossoming into a Pro Bowl receiver. He's the first Pro Bowl receiver ever from the Ravens, which absolutely blew me away.
Nuts.
But Remo, just as a pick'em, I mean, right now, do you have a lean on the Bills or Baltimore?
I was going to say Bills at home. The crowd is going to be crazy. The Bills Mafia, they're going to be going through tables before the game. They're going to be noisy. I don't know. Do we have a huge snowstorm coming in, one of those lake effect snow things where they bring the fans in?
That'd be great
shovel?
for the Bills.
Yeah, is that happening?
It'd be great for Derrick Henry too.
Yeah.
I just wonder about Lamar in that. Listen,
throwing.
I mean, Lamar, he's got some playoff demons to beat. And whether it's this week or if they get through next week, certainly against the final boss in the AFC, they'll do it. I just, listen, these are three of the best teams in the league. We knew that it would come down to it at some point with a combination of these teams playing. Listen, the Chiefs are 8-point favorites. They should beat the Texans. We know what Andy Reid's record is coming off the bye. But it kind of seems like ever since that these two teams played back in late September, that we were going to see them play again. And you mentioned, too, the MVP Bowl. I mean, I know the votes are already in.
Right.
But it would be cool if we just said, you know what? Whoever wins this game, you're getting the MVP this year, and you get a chance, a crack at Patrick Mahomes. So, again, up at Coolbet right now, the 3 games for next weekend that are already set. Tomorrow we'll know whether the Eagles are hosting Minnesota or the Rams. I see the line came down a little bit for the money line. Vikings now minus 135, Rams plus 124, just since we've been talking about it. Today, we got 3 games in the NHL. The Panthers are in Philly to take on the Flyers, minus 182 favorites for the Panthers. The Flames are minus 159 favorites on the road in Chicago against the Hawks. And the Oilers are a big minus 200 favorite at home against the Los Angeles Kings. And the Jets still holding on 15-1 to win the Cup behind Washington, Vegas, Colorado, the Leafs, New Jersey, Dallas, Florida, Carolina, and Edmonton. So if you're getting more and more geeked about what the Jets are possible of, like often, it takes a long time for people to realize what's happening here in Winnipeg. So you're getting a bit better of a number than certainly the record would indicate. Hey, one other thing before we go, guys. By the way, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, join us on the Lock Shop every day at noon over on Edmonton Sports Talk. And if you'd like to play a Coolbet, use the promo code WST when you make your first deposit. Hook you up with a 100% bonus on that first deposit, up to $200. Did you guys see the game or the highlights Saturday night of the Anaheim Ducks visit to Philadelphia in Cutter Gauthier's return to the city of brotherly love?
Couldn't get enough of this, Hustler. I was kind of, creeping up. I guess they asked him about it, and he still hasn't really divulged, like, why he wouldn't even meet with Keith Jones, the president. Why he wouldn't even meet with, who was the other one? Was it John LeClaire? Like, just ghosted them.
Briere.
Briere. Ghosted them. And yeah, it led to the trade for Jamie Drysdale. So Flyers fans came ready on Saturday chanting "F-U Cutter." Like the Philly fans, like they're nuts.
Drysdale's better.
Yeah, Drysdale's better. And Drysdale scored as well in that game. And you had Travis Konechny threatening to fight Cutter, who was looking timid all night. They were going after him. What a wild, wild scene it was. And like, I don't think the same thing will happen here when Rutger comes with the Penguins if he gets back to the NHL. But it did make me think. But it also made me think that Flyers fans, their reputation is certainly earned.
It is. Listen, they're complete psychos. I think Winnipeg fans are more polite than to actually drop the full F word in a chant. I will say, though, Connor, I think if it's next year, whenever Rutger McGroarty plays his first game in a visiting jersey here in Winnipeg, assuming he makes the NHL and can stay there, people are not going to forget. Fans have long memories, and listen, everyone loves a hero, everyone loves a villain. Rutger, much like his buddy Cutter, created himself when he did what he did, and to me, it was a little bit of a blueprint of how a fan base needs to get behind their team and on a guy that they feel wronged them when that matchup finally takes place.
Yeah, and I liked the chant also. It was like the first couple shifts of the game, they're saying, "We want Cutter," almost like put him on the ice, like here, like let's get it going here. And then Travis Konechny, threatening to fight him. And then after the game, I think he had an interview that was like basically saying his loss. I don't know. We never got an explanation. So he did it to himself almost. And yeah, it was quite the scene. And I think, Winnipeg fans are more polite than Philly fans. Their Philly fans' reputation is up there. So I think it won't be that harsh when Rutger shows up, but it still will be harsh. And hopefully it's half the scene that we saw there in Philly. And I think it will be. It will be.
Yeah, no, listen, when the schedule comes out next year, even though it's no guarantee he'll be on the team, we'll be looking at that Pittsburgh visit, and it'll be great to welcome Sid and Malkin, presumably, and some of their legendary stars. Rutger McGroarty will be the focus of attention, much like his buddy Cutter was on Saturday. One final thing to get to. Does Nick Taylor now get to share the nickname with Nick Foles? Because that guy has the stones. It's unbelievable. When he gets into winning contention or into a playoff, he just turns into prime Tiger Woods. Like, to chip in for Eagle on 18 after missing a 3 and a 4-footer to get into a playoff and then win the way that he did. I mean, like Nick Taylor quietly becoming one of the most decorated Canadian golfers ever, and another great start to a PGA Tour season with his win yesterday at the Sony, Connor.
Yeah, that was awesome. And if I chipped in for Eagle any time in my life, I would take that to my grave. So that's just another day at the office for him. But that's awesome. And Nick Taylor, Canadian, he's had so many good moments over the years, winning the tournament a few years ago, the Canadian Open there. So it was nice to see that. It was awesome.
You know, Rima, TSN was referring to him last night as Winnipeg's Nick Taylor. Now, we will certainly take him. But he was born here and I think moved away when he was like 2 years old.
Yes.
But I don't know. They probably had a couple interns that were just putting the things together that weren't around when Nick was doing that. But I mean, regardless of where in Canada claims him, another great start for Canada on the PGA Tour with other players like Pendy and Mac Hughes and Corey Connors. I mean, as a golf fan, it's so much fun, really, for the first time in my lifetime, to have a number of realistic guys that are in contention and in tournaments every single week on tour.
Yeah, Nick Taylor is a thing for winning here and like not the prime golf season. I mean, it's January and he's winning a tournament. He got his first win in November 2014. So I think he punches his ticket to the Masters now. You'll have a few Canadians at that major tournament. So very exciting to see. And yeah, you look at Wikipedia, it says from Winnipeg, but it also notes he moved to Abbotsford when he was 3. I mean, we'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it,
Winnipeg zone.
Yeah,
Nick Taylor, PGA Tour winner. We should have gone out. Was anyone at Portage in Maine last night? After it was a little too cold.
I'll say there was a Winnipegger who did get a win on a international stage yesterday.
Our guy.
Tyler Hrabchak,
Yes.
first half Ironman in Chile, coming in first place. So it became a viral sensation after throwing up at the finish line at the Olympics. He put out to his followers on Instagram saying, hey, this is my first half Ironman. How am I going to do? Won. So I'm curious what this means for him going forward. So he's a great follow on Instagram. He's all over the world, Huss, competing in triathlons, but half Ironman, winning yesterday, representing Winnipeg, representing Oak Bluff. So that was pretty awesome to see. Shout out to Tyler.
We got to check in with Tyler as well. I got to find out just what's involved in the half Ironman. I mean, he's just an absolute machine. And, man, it was cool to see him. He went through that tape, basically just grabbed it, held it up, and did not puke right after the race either. So, listen, he's winning, maintaining everything inside him afterwards. But congratulations to Nick Taylor and Tyler Hrabchak for big weekends representing Canada internationally. Guys, great stuff. Connor, thanks for coming on. I know we're going to have some more of you later on this week and next week. So for those of you that keep on hammering, we need more Connor. Your wishes will be granted. But again, if you haven't checked out the latest episode of WST Sunday Live, get over to the YouTube channel. Connor, Liz, and Jacob coming in hot right out of the Saturday night win over Colorado. Had some great stuff yesterday. If you need a little additional content and you haven't already checked out, make sure to do that. Tomorrow's going to be fun. The Canucks are in town, and I cannot wait to talk to my pal Matt Sakaris for a little bit on what exactly is going on in and around the Canucks and what we can expect tomorrow. So we'll have that for you, the latest on the morning skate, who's in, who's out. We're going to see Nikolai Ehlers staying with Lowry and Iafallo. I would expect that we will. So it should be a real fun show tomorrow. It's been a great one today, though. Thanks to everyone that jumped in. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Let's just keep on moving forward and give the show a thumbs up as well. Always helps us spread the news. That is going to do it for us today, folks. Thanks to Connor for jumping on. Michael Remis, of course. Kevin Sawyer, awesome segment with Kevin. Really enjoyed that. Mike McIntyre as well today. Skol, let's go Vikes. Keep it rolling. Sammy Darts, big bounce back game tonight. So for all you Viking fans, I'm pulling for you as well. And I'm pulling for Justin Jefferson, 90 yards. Cooper Kupp, 49 or more yards, and an over in the game to cash our partner parlay. That's up in the Coolbet exclusives as well. Have a great one, everyone. Stay warm. Enjoy the football game tonight. We'll see you tomorrow for a game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk right here on WST. Talk to you then.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.